Well, hello and welcome to episode number 300 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, here live at the Millennium Suite in the Renaissance Hotel at London Heathrow. And with me this week, pushing all the right buttons, as always, is my first co-host, Matt Smith.
Well, hello there.
Hello, Matt.
I'm a bit busy. You'll forgive me if I don't do a great deal of talking this afternoon.
Okay, we'll let you off. We'll let you get on. So sitting next to me on the top table here, another chap who likes to push all the right buttons, and that is, of course, the king of visuals, Neville Bounds.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Hello, hope you're all well, and thanks very much indeed for coming. Really appreciate everybody's contribution to today. It's been fantastic so far.
So sitting to my left, no introduction needed, really, Steph, honestly, is one of the greatest hosts of APG, the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
Jeff is laughing about that, so I guess maybe that's not true.
It's, of course, Dr. Steph.
Hey, Carlos, glad I could make it. Congratulations on 300 episodes, guys.
Thank you, and thanks for flying in, because obviously you made the trek and you landed this morning.
Yes,
and
fresh off the plane.
When are you flying home?
Tomorrow. Yeah.
There we go.
As you do.
And you're back at work Monday?
Yes.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes.
Thanks. Well, thanks for coming across, Steph. That's very kind
my
of you.
pleasure. Glad to be here.
And sitting next to Steph, next on the panel, this guy, well, he's a legend unto himself. For those of you who watched our Christmas special, will know that he also poses as a rather famous red-suited guy at Christmas time. It's, of course, Captain Nick.
Well, thanks very much indeed for having me on the show. Very kind of you guys. Much appreciated. Can't believe you've actually made 300 shows. How on earth did it carry on this long?
With your help, Nick. Yeah.
Marvellous.
So sitting next to Nick from the Layovers podcast, another fantastic aviation podcast. And I'm not going to say your surname, Paul, because every time I do, I get this really wrong. So from the Layovers podcast, it's Paul.
Hi there, guys, and thank you so much for having me for the 300. And hello from Alex, my co-host, who couldn't be here today with us. We are episode 102, and the bet is, will we reach 300 before or after the third runway from Heathrow opens? There you go. But congratulations, guys, really.
Or before Lufthansa upgrade their point system. Yeah.
Oh, that's just not getting me started.
Okay.
But I have the shoes. I have the Lufthansa shoes today, the ones that were given to crew on August 2018. They had one day where they were able to wear sneakers for work, and I bought them off eBay, so I kind of like Lufthansa, actually.
Okay. Thanks for coming, Paul. It's good to see you. And next to Paul, he is the king, the don, the legend. He is the lord of Airline Pilot Guy. It is, of course, Captain Jeff.
Hello, everyone, and it's great to be here to help you celebrate this monumental...
Cock up.
I'm sorry I paused for a moment to let Nick interject something, but this monumental occasion, it's great. Glad to be here. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jeff. It's nice. We appreciate the fact you made the journey as well across the seas, so thank you. It's great to see you, as always.
Yes.
And on the very end of the table, it is the guy who flies the posh aircraft around, we'll call them. It's our king of... I shouldn't say that, I should say Safe Jet. We'll bleep that out in post.
Well, you should have seen his
We all know anyway, Pip. It's the king of Safe Jet and the host of the Plane Safety Podcast. It's Pilot Pip.
Thank you very much. Is this thing on? Thank you, Carlos. Yeah, great to be here. My partner and podcasting wife, Captain Al, sends his regards. He's in Bucharest working, so he can't be here, but he sends his love and congratulations on 300 episodes. What an achievement.
In fact, actually, that sounds like a perfect opportunity. We were sent a message by Captain Al.
Oh, no.
Brace yourselves, everyone.
Hello, everyone. It's Captain Al here. I'm so sorry that I can't make it to the 300th show. Frankly, I'm amazed it got past 30, but there you go. That's how things go. No, unfortunately, someone's got to go flying today. So just to keep Ms. Thunberg happy, I'm actually going to fly passengers rather than be a passenger. I see that Captain Jeff and Dr. Steph have added to the CO2 emissions for the world. And as I've not had beans this morning, I'm doing my bit by actually keeping the carbon dioxide emissions down to a low level. I'm here at the Hilton Garden Inn in Bucharest. That's right, it's a Hilton property, the finest properties that you can find around. Available at good rates at hilton.com. And that is genuine lift music that you can hear in the background. But jokes aside, I'm really disappointed that I can't be with everyone today. I hope you have a fantastic time. And don't give me a moment's thought at any time. Have a great day. Captain Al out.
Oh, thank you, Captain Al. So some of you may have noticed that we are missing a member of the PTUK team today, and but I'm pleased to say that a certain Armando has dialed in. So welcome, Armando.
Hey everybody, it's great to see everyone on the panel. Awesome to hear everyone there in the audience, and the chat room is already buzzing. Obviously, like Al said, I wish I was there, but having just recently joined the world of commercial aviation, they put me on reserve right away and immediately made it so I wasn't able to go there. So I'm missing you guys. I can't wait to hear the rest of the show, and above all, congratulations to Carlos, Matt, Nev on 300 episodes. That is a pretty awesome achievement, isn't it?
Thanks, Armando. It's great, but obviously, what's the time difference your side? So you're 4 hours behind us? 5 hours.
We're 5 hours, so it's not too bad this morning, as opposed to some of the other episodes that we've recorded where it's 5 in the morning. No, but it's 8 o'clock here. I've already had 2 cups of coffee, so ready to go.
Excellent. Up to any flying this past few days, Armando? Are you obviously been training and getting the flying in with your new airline?
Yeah, just like Pip, when he does his segments kind of describing how airline training goes or simulator training, it's been a bit of a fire hose of information. They throw you into the simulator and they make you sweat quite a bit, and next thing you know, you're out there flying the real airplane with passengers, and I got a chance to do that. So it was very, very cool and just kind of a dream come true for me post-military career.
Oh, it's great to see you anyway, Armando, and thanks for joining us today.
Of course. I wish I was there in person, but this will have to do.
So, for those of you watching the live stream on YouTube, Matt has been very busy over the last 24 hours and has put a camera upstairs overlooking one of the largest views at Heathrow. For those of you who watch a live show, you know I like to put Matt through the paces when we're doing a live show. He enjoys the technically stuff. So, but we have got a camera feed that looks over London Heathrow. And for those of you who are watching the live stream, and for those of you here, you'll be able to see that on the screen. There we go, the live feed from outside here, where we overlook the room here, which is great feed. So well done, Matt. Thanks for that. You done well there. I'll give you a round of applause.
There's nothing I can say. Moving on. Yeah.
Moving on. So we've got some news stories to go through before we start anything. So without further ado, if everyone's ready to discuss this week's aviation news.
Sure.
Let's go. So, kicking off this week's first news story, this one's on flightglobal.com, one of Nev's favourite websites for font usage. So, British Airways A380, you've watched the show too much. British Airways A319 spoiler strayed after maintenance lap. Really? I should give this story to you now, for honesty. Investigators have determined a failure to follow maintenance procedures resulted in a BA A319 experiencing an in-flight control problem arising from a loose spoiler. While taxiing at London Gatwick on the 2nd of April last year, the aircraft had returned to stand to resolve a flight control status message, and 2 engineers discovered a faulty spoiler actuator. They commenced a maintenance procedure to deactivate the spoiler, which involved using a special tool, a spoiler maintenance key, to place the spoiler into the maintenance position. The UK Air Accidents Investigation Branch says the work was carried out in a cold and wet weather and the engineers had difficulty using the handheld tablet with the maintenance information. Although an operational test was carried out to check to see if the spoiler could be raised manually, it was not. Despite having a remove before flight tag, the key remained installed after the A319 was dispatched for its flight to Palma de Mallorca. In this configuration, the spoiler was able to float upwards from the stow position, which caused the crew to experience flight control problems en route. While in cruise, the aircraft was flying 2 degrees left wing down, with right rudder trim and vibrating. The crew consulted with the carrier's maintenance control, and a cabin crew member was asked to check the wing visually. Now, Nick, you are an Airbus or ex-Airbus pilot. Obviously a smaller aircraft, quite considerably smaller than you used to fly, but an issue you've heard of before?
Oh yeah, it's very same in principle, regardless of the size of the airplane. We all know the spoilers are the panels on the wings that raise when you select speed brakes out to help you descend faster when air traffic cock things up and leave you too high on the approach. And as we like to say to air traffic, the speed brakes are to cure our mistakes, not yours. So on the Airbus A380, there were like 5 either side. I'm not sure how many there are on a 319. Sorry, 2. What was it? A 319?
319.
Yeah. But anyway, the principle's the same. They're hydraulically raised, and they're a long, thin panel, and they're normally held down in flight to keep the wing nice and smooth. Now, if one is unpowered and allowed to float, the low pressure on the wing will encourage that spoiler to rise up. And of course that will create a little bit of roll effect, because it's like putting a little bit of aileron onto that wing, and also it will vibrate, because just as the speed brakes do when you select them out, they buffet, and so you'll get a little bit of buffet from them, and it's not usually a big problem so long as you've got enough fuel to counter the extra drag, and it does give you a bit of a handling issue. The airplane will want to just be left wing, or in this case left wing lower a little bit. When you put the flaps down, the pressure patterns over the wings change, so they can raise even more, but there is a procedure in the manuals to account for this. You raise the landing speed a little bit, because obviously you've got spoiled airflow over that portion of that wing, so you can't come in at your normal approach speed, you need to come at a higher approach speed, and all that's laid down. The reason for the maintenance lapse, I don't know. Obviously it wasn't very nice weather, but you know, the guys are supposed to follow the procedures fairly rigorously. So a shame that happened. But it's quite possible that they could have had a hydraulic failure in flight and caused the same issue. The fact that it was a maintenance issue is a bit irrelevant, really. But I guess the guy will want to. Well, they'll probably want to look at their procedures to make sure they're following them correctly. But quite honestly, from a pilot's point of view, apart from being a bit awkward to handle on the approach, it's, I would say, a bit of a non-event.
So I was going to say, moving on to the next story, Matt's rather busy. So Nev,
Carlos?
Yes.
Sorry, just before you go on, did you want to mention my impressive equipment? I have here, in case anyone in the audience wanted to.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, if anyone, while we're doing the stories, if anyone's got a question, by the way, in the oldies, just give us. Put your hand up and we'll send Pip out with the roving.
Just wink at me or flash me or
throw
something,
things.
yeah. You know, just on this story before you move on, if I can comment, we've over the years at my company had several incidents where maintenance personnel have left things, tools, screwdrivers, hammers, whatever, in places in the aircraft. And most maintenance places should have quite a robust audit process with the tool. So every tool has maybe a barcode or some kind of identification number, and each time it's taken out, it's scanned out and logged out, and it should be at the end of the shift logged back in. So if ever there's a tool missing, they can kind of trail back and find out where that is. Exactly for this reason, if it's been left in in an aircraft behind the rudder pedals or in the flight control somewhere, it can cause a problem.
Sounds exactly like a surgical count, basically.
Exactly.
Familiar with that.
Thank you, Pip. I guess things are a little bit more scaled down for the airline that you fly for, because obviously the aircraft they're obviously a lot smaller than the.
Yeah, but there's still plenty of places you can lose a hammer, a screwdriver. Like I say, we've had it several times where they've found torches, flashlights, or whatever in the inners of the airplane, and if it gets into the wrong place, it can really cause a big problem.
I think that's standard for Boeing South Carolina factory. They leave stuff on the Dreamliners, right? Sorry for that one.
That's what the news story
says. As the
says.
South Carolina representative here, I will say no comment.
When I was in the Air Force, we on the Phantom, we had calls to open a panel that was on the wing that had never been opened before. The aircraft was about 12, 15 years old, and they found a McDonnell Douglas pair of pliers still sitting in the wing, which had been left there since manufacture.
So we're going to give Matt a break because he's obviously in full tech mode. So just for a change, we're going to give story number 2 to Mr. Bounds.
Yes.
And it's you'll be pleased to know, Jeff. It's we're going green with this next story.
We're going green. We're going green.
He's right. And this is on the irishtimes.com website. And I don't normally do a Ryanair story, so this is completely new to me. Ryanair has again claimed to be Europe's greenest and cleanest major airline, despite recently being named as one of the continent's worst polluters by the EU's Transport and Environment Group. The carrier bases its claim to green credentials on having the lowest carbon footprint per passenger of any European airline. The company published figures on Tuesday showing that it produced 69 grams of carbon dioxide per passenger for every kilometre its craft travelled in December. It claimed that this was half the rate of other European airlines. However, according to data released this month by the same group, Ryanair was responsible for 9.9 million tonnes of CO2 emissions in 2018, making it one of Europe's top 10 worst polluters. The airline was one of only 2 non-energy companies on the list, and the other airline. The other was the container shipping company MSC. The other 8 on the list were coal-fired power plants. Aviation is one of the sectors coming under intense pressure to reduce its carbon footprint as public fears about climate change grow.
I've got a question, Nev. Was that coal-fired power plant Mad Dog?
It doesn't say, but we can draw our own conclusions, possibly. But it says that, where are we? Yes, Kenny Jacobs, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of Ryanair, says that our CO2 per passenger kilometre is the lowest in the industry, having been cut from 82 grams to 66 over the last decade, whilst other high-fare competitors currently generate over 120 grams per kilometre passenger, he said. The single most important thing any consumer can do to reduce their carbon footprint is to switch to Ryanair. We are pleased to announce that our CO2 per pax kilometre for December was 69 grams, half the rate of other flag-carrying European airlines, and we are committed to reducing this by a further 10% to under 60 grams per passenger kilometre by 2030, Mr. Jacobs says.
So we've got, obviously, you guys here in the audience. Hands up who's actually flown with Ryanair. Okay, leave your hands up.
Quite a few.
Leave your hands up if you enjoyed your experience of Ryanair.
3.
Yeah, they're doing well. They're doing well. Your favourite, Matt. So we're going to move on to the next story. So, Steph, do you want to take the next story?
Sure. This is the New Zealand Herald one. Headline is British Airways' sassy tweet to disgruntled customer dramatically backfires. A social media employee with British Airways has been praised for her witty response to a customer who tried to shame the airline for delaying her flight because of a failed passport signature. A customer took to Twitter to publicly complain to British Airways about being refused entry onto a plane because her passport wasn't signed. There's an abbreviation for an expletive here in the tweet. She tweeted, at British Airways, our flight is 20 minutes late because the first officer was stuck in traffic to the airport. Despite that, gate staff refused to let me on the flight because my passport wasn't signed. So instead, we held up the queue for another 5 minutes while I practiced my signature. The passenger went on to complain that she hadn't realized a certain page required a signature, but didn't understand why the already delayed line had to wait even longer for her to sign. But instead of an apology, the airline responded with the following choice words. There are times when we have to accept responsibility for our own actions, the tweet read. If you'd signed your passport when you received it, this wouldn't have become an issue. Angela. The airline worker's sassy response received a mix of celebration and criticism, with some applauding Angela, in quotes, for her shade, while others viewed the response as the rudest customer service they'd ever witnessed. One person wrote, "Angela at British Airways deserves a raise." Another added, "Well, that told you. As a cabin crew member myself, I love that Angela is standing up for her crew." Others, however, saw the tweet as a lack of respect and poor handling of a complaint. "That's incredibly rude. I was about to spend several thousand in long-haul flights with you over the next few months. That will instead be going to a different airline." Awful apology. Goodness, rudest complaint or customer service response ever. Awful. British Airways has since removed the tweet. Shocking. Yeah.
Now, Nev, being our BA sponsor here today, we were talking about this yesterday, weren't we, about this particular story. So, you got any thoughts?
I think it's the best tweet I've seen out of the British Airways social media department for a very long time. How difficult can it be to sign your passport? And of course, airlines are fined very heavily if passengers board and they don't have the correct documentation, especially at the other end, and especially in the US as well. That's very bad. So I think British Airways did exactly the right thing. It's been unfortunate that it's been taken down, though. But it went viral very quickly, didn't it?
Oh, it did. I actually think I have a screenshot of the tweet because I was pretty sure it was going to be taken down, and I just really enjoyed Angela's response personally. I want to know why it took this passenger 5 minutes to sign her passport. That's a little concerning to me.
She had to practice her signature.
Yes, my finest penmanship for my signature on my passport.
I don't think you'd want her sitting at the emergency exit if it all went wrong
No.
on the runway, would you?
That would not go well, I don't think.
I can now say it because I've just switched passport to a new one, but for my previous passport, which is now full, the signature was not mine. You know, they don't really care. You have to have a signature. I needed the passport to have a signature for a visa. I was not here in London. I asked, I say, can somebody just sign something that resembles my signature? So they haven't. So yeah, don't. You can put a cross and you'll find it's a signature. It doesn't really matter.
But that's good that you told us that here, where nowhere else can hear you say that. It's very private.
No, but now I have a new passport, so it's over.
I would check his signature.
Yes, compare that to other documents, definitely.
So moving on, Nick.
Yes,
Obviously, the next story is regarding a big Airbus order.
Apparently Spirit Airlines makes a big Airbus order. They finalised its order for up to 150 A320neos, a deal that will fuel Spirit's plan to double in size over the next 5 years. As expected, the South Florida-based discounter firmed its previous commitment for 100 A320neo family aircraft plus 50 options at the end of December. The jets, which complement its current A320 family fleet, include A319neo, A320neo, and A321neo. It's like a episode of Matrix, isn't it? Spirit has big growth plans for the next few years. It plans to grow by double digits this year, focusing on connecting markets in its network and adding new destinations. We're going to double our size by 2025, which is another way of saying they'll double their size in 5 years. Spirit Vice President in-flight experience, Lania Rittenhouse, told reporters in December. Complementing the planned growth is a new passenger cabin and seats on its planes that Spirit debuted in December. The new cabin includes a refreshed look, emphasizing the airline's yellow and black livery. It'll be looking like your car, Nev. Whilst the seats aim to increase usable space through the new design and moving the literature pocket to the top of the seatback. How novel. Spirit plans to take delivery of 21 320s this year, but is looking for up to 7 more aircraft to bolster its fleet growth. So all marvellous for Airbus and Spirit. What do they like to fly on? I've never flown on.
Anyone flown Spirit Airlines?
Spirit?
No.
Nope.
They're a low cost.
Yeah, I've actually flown Spirit quite a bit.
Oh, okay.
Good.
And
Who's that?
The voice of God.
It's the voice behind the curtain, Nick. Look right over your
I
left
pay
shoulder.
no attention to
right.
that voice behind the
No, right shoulder. Now, I see, while you were reading that story, I was looking at Spirit's numbers, and I didn't realize that they'd grown so fast. In 2014, they had 65 aircraft. In 2018, they had 128 aircraft. So if they're doubling their fleet in the next couple of years, in just the span of 7 years, they have quadrupled their fleet. So obviously, Spirit has caught on to something here in the U.S., and they're doing something right.
You probably know, Armando, if you've been in the Charlotte airport recently, they just started service in and out of there as well. So definitely growing.
Yeah, that's right. Pretty much everywhere we go now, I'm seeing a lot of Spirit activity and presence, and they have some. They've pretty much taken up the European model where they're saving costs. They're using third-party ground handlers, third-party cleaners. They're saving money on jetways. They're flying into, not always the kind of like Allegiant, not always the biggest airports, but yeah, we'll see. They seem to be making it work, that sort of Ryanair EasyJet model here in the U.S.
Are they working out of hubs, Armando?
They do. So they fly into and out of some of the major hubs, but then some of their outstations will be a remote or a satellite airport.
Okay. Oh, good luck with them.
So, Paul,
Yes.
long distance flying for the next story. Simple flying.
Oh, I've never done that one. I've done very long, but this is the longest. So Qantas is facing the prospect of adding a fuel stop to the world's third longest flight. The airline is taking steps to avoid flying over Iraq and Iran following the crash or the downing, that's not in the article, of an Ukrainian Boeing 737. The downing, actually, because this morning I think Iran finally said that they mistakenly shot down the plane. The extra distance required to divert means that the airline will need to add a refueling stop in Asia to the outbound service or offload a massive 90 passengers to reduce weight. And then what is it says that's interesting. The world's third longest flight is looking to lose its appeal as Qantas is forced to add its stop. That's QF9 and QF10. They usually traverse a large portion of Iranian and Iraqi airspace on their 14,500 kilometer flight. How many miles, I don't know how to translate that. However, following the FAA decision to ban US airlines flying in Iran and Iraqi airspace, Qantas has announced it will avoid flying over both these nations until further notice. They don't say where that stop would be, but I guess it will be as Singapore, because that's what they do where the other flights. The detour is expected to add some 40 to 50 minutes of flight time to the trip. The article is very long, it just blah blah blah, because as always Simple Flying does a lot of blah blah, but there you go. Have you guys done this super long flights to Australia? This direct to Perth, for instance?
No.
It's extremely expensive if you look at it. I think it's at least 30% more expensive than if you do a stop. So you really, but then, yeah.
Yeah. What are the chances of DVTs then on these really, really long flights?
Higher, but I don't know by what percentage. Yeah.
During their, so they call it, Qantas calls it the Project Sunrise, right? So looking to connect Sydney directly to London and to New York, but to London, that would be the longest flight ever. So they've done, it's a bit of marketing, because honestly you can already do flights that are 17, 18 hours, and this is 19 and a half. So, and they went into this old PR of doing these flights with very reduced load, invited some bloggers and journalists, and they do exercises, and people do yoga. And
they did it with, they had quite a few airline employees, I think, for Qantas on the flight as well, and they kind of treated it like a little bit of a human physiology science experiment, where they tried to time it with circadian rhythms so that people slept when they should be asleep, or up when they should be up, and get up and actually move around and try and prevent some of those complications of long-haul flying.
And they would also... They have special options for food, apparently, to also reduce, the
like
tiredness and etc. I mean, they said that they would probably go with a 350, 1000 to do that, but they haven't fully decided yet.
Yep, I think you're correct.
But I think it's a bit of a PR thing to have people doing yoga in a flight, because we're probably not going to do yoga in a flight, let's be very honest.
It's easy to do when you have a very light load and you have passengers who are there willingly as part of whether it's PR or whether it's, to really look at it from a scientific standpoint to see some of the physiological effects. But yeah, on a full plane or close to capacity for however many passengers they can take on a flight like that, it would be much more difficult. I don't know how many of you have tried to even get up and try to get just to the lavatory on a flight, even a long-haul flight, and sometimes that's even difficult or tricky. There's not a lot of space to move around.
But I think what they will do, because at first, if you read the articles from the very beginning of Project Sunrise, they basically told you that they would have like a gym in a plane, which is totally insane, right? We know that.
Sounds good to me.
But they will probably have a space in the back which will be without seats for people to kind of wander a bit. That's probably the most likely outcome of the project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's always baffled me a little bit why airlines advertise these flights, these ultra-long 19-hour flights, as though it's a good thing, like it's a selling point. It's like, come on, who wants to do this?
I'd rather stop myself. I do very long flights, a lot actually, and I always want to stop. It's even if it's 2 hours, just to kind of wander around and just stretch my legs or whatever. It's easier.
We could settle this right now. Hands up, all those who would rather a non-stop 19-hour flight over one with a stop. Oh man, you're crazy. What's wrong with you people?
Well, if you have a stop, you're going to have the approach, you're going to taxi in, you're going to wait while the aircraft's cleaned and refueled, and then you're going to get back on it again and continue your flight. You're just adding 3 hours to the flight time.
And sorry.
No, that was it. And
so it makes what would be a 19-hour flight into a 22-hour flight. That's pretty miserable.
But where you're absolutely right is that Qantas has released the numbers for the Perth-London, and it's 94% full. So people are actually buying, and probably business people especially, because these flights, again, are very expensive, so it works. So
but you said the direct flight is cheaper than the one with the stop?
No, the direct flight is actually more expensive.
Okay.
That's why, yeah.
Oh, but that's interesting.
Yeah, I can see it working for people who absolutely have to be somewhere for business. I mean, we kind of talked about this, I think, both your podcast and other podcasts, about how in this day and age, a lot of business can be conducted remotely or via, video conferencing and whatnot, if you really have to. But if you really have to be there for some reason and, time is important, then that's an appealing option to some folks.
But don't forget as well, when you're sitting in economy on that length of flight, I think we'd all rather be in business class or first. I think it would be much more.
I don't care if it's a 30-minute flight or a 19-hour flight. I'd rather be in first.
But actually, Singapore, the longest flight, Singapore, Newark to Singapore, only has premium economy and business class. It don't have economy.
But with that story though, going on to the news that obviously broke last night, your guys' thoughts on obviously Iran have admitted to unintentionally shooting down that aircraft. Any thoughts from the pilots on the table here?
I think it would have to be unintentional because they had so many Iranian citizens on board, they would hardly have done that to their own people. And quite honestly, if it had been chock full of folk from the United States, then you might have thought otherwise. But they've got no particular gripe against Canada, so I don't see that being a problem. The reason it got shut down, well, I don't see Iran as having an integrated air defense system that coordinates civil departures with military aircraft, tracks them, so that all the military missile systems there on the ground know exactly where the civil aircraft are and how to identify them, etc. I see this as being a fairly autonomous missile system that fired at an aircraft, and it was shortly after, obviously, the missile strikes were initiated from Iran into Iraq. So, they would probably have been anticipating retaliation, and anything that was flying was going to be vulnerable at that point. I must admit, if I'd been the Ukrainian airline straight after all those missiles went, I probably would have grounded my fleet for a while until I had worked out what the hell was going on, because this is just sort of the time when mistakes can be made.
I think there were several
airlines. I'll add in for Nick, the missile system that is believed to have been used on this is it's a little bit bigger than a shoulder-launched missile. It is a wheeled vehicle. It's a Tor M1, which is similar to the SA-15. So it is something that is generally decentralized, especially in a situation like that where the Iranian government is expecting a retaliation. They will often, not just the Iranians, but anybody will give orders to their field units to say, hey, if communications do go down, which is one of the first things, you guys have the authority to fire. So this could have been a communications failure. It could have been a command and control failure where, a trigger-happy air defense battalion was out there and they thought they saw something and accidentally fired this missile. I think a lot of us in the aviation industry started seeing some of the pictures flow out from Tehran and immediately thought, well, the patterns on the fuselage and the tail were pretty indicative of some kind of ball bearing type thing that had struck the fuselage, the way the metal was curved inward, not outward. The patterns coming from back to front on the aircraft. It was pretty clear right off the bat that the aircraft was shot down by something. So I anticipate that the information will be limited coming out of Iran, but at least they have seemed to pony up to it.
Well, they invited the NTSB, but the irony is that I think they cleaned up the site already. So there's a bulldozed the site of the accident, so there's no real reason for the NTSB. I mean, I don't know. But they already, do you remember, guys, what was it, Iran Air 655? That was shot down by this, was it a US carrier? The Vincennes or something?
Yeah, that's correct. 1988. So there's been
a few others.
Unfortunately, dozens of airliner shootdowns. Korean Air 007, Iranian 655. There was
Itavia something, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, LL 402 back in the 60s. There's quite a few examples of just airliners being in the wrong place. Korean Airlines 007 was accidentally shot down because they thought it was a reconnaissance plane.
Yeah.
And that was shot down by aircraft from air-to-air missiles. And it was nighttime. The 747 looks a lot like a 707 reconnaissance aircraft at night. And they weren't responding to radio calls and they shot it down and everyone lost their lives on that one. So it's just one of those unfortunate things that happens. And like Nick was saying, if I was the commercial operator, I probably wouldn't have released that flight,
So, I was gonna say that there were, I think I read a report that there were a few flights before the Ukrainian airline flight launched that delayed or canceled their flights. So they were aware that it probably wasn't a good idea to be flying that morning.
So sticking with you, Jeff.
Yeah.
You look like you're having a whale of a time up there. So we'll move on to the next story.
Call that a segue.
What a great segue. All right, Airbus's second Beluga XL enters service. Airbus's second Beluga XL has entered service with the European manufacturer today. The aircraft's first flight in service saw it fly from Toulouse to Frankfurt. The aircraft is based on the Airbus A330 and has a friendly face, just like its namesake.
It's cute, isn't it?
Yeah. Much like Boeing's oversized Dreamlifter, the Beluga is designed for transporting oversized cargo. The XL is an expansion of the original Airbus Beluga and has 35% more storage space. As such, it can transport 2 wings for Airbus A350 aircraft. Rather than replacing the existing Beluga fleet, the Beluga XL will supplement it, at least for the time being, that is. What is the Beluga? Depending on your point of view, the Airbus Beluga is either a freak or a marvel of the aviation industry, much like the pilots that fly the Airbus. The aircraft is based on the Airbus A330. However, it has a huge bubble on its head. This is much like the whale, which it has been thoughtfully named after. The original Beluga was based on the Airbus A330-600. Previously, the manufacturer used the Super Guppy to transport bulky items. Ironically, this was originally built by Boeing, meaning that Boeing aircraft were part of the Airbus supply chain. Shall I continue, or is that enough? I think I'll continue that, not getting direction. As Airbus has grown, its fleet of Belugas is no longer sufficient for its needs. As a result, the manufacturer needed a fix. The XL model has a much bigger capacity than its predecessor. In fact, while the fuselage is almost 7 meters longer, it is now also 1.7 meters wider at 8.8 meters. The Airbus's A380's fuselage is only 7.14 meters wide. The second Beluga rolled out of the manufacturing hangar in March of last year. The type received certification from EASA in November 2019, and the test aircraft is now being refitted for service before starting operations itself.
So I'm guessing none of the guys on the panel here have ever flown on the Beluga.
No, but I really want to, however.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
I gather the cabin is unpressurized, I believe.
Oh.
So that makes it a quite interesting journey. I don't know if they fly at particularly high level, and it's also probably got quite restrictive weather conditions it can fly in, which means flying it would be quite nice because you would be relatively low on a nice day. So you get a good look out at the countryside, and you wouldn't have to deal with any lousy weather.
There you go. You convinced me.
Pip, up to the top table with you. The next story, and for those of you who watch the show, you might know we obviously talk about the 380 and the fact that a lot of airlines are starting to bin off the 380. In fact, the MSN 003, ex-Singapore Airlines, there's pictures online of that being cut up and dismantled for parts. So, Pip, next story with you about Hi-Fly.
Yes, sir. So this is another story from simpleflying.com. The headline is, Hi-Fly gets 30 requests for its Airbus A380 every day. Simple Flying recently caught up with CEO and chairman of Hi-Fly, Dr. Paolo Mipuri, to find out what the airline thinks of its A380. The specialist wet-leased airline regularly comes under fire for investing in an unpopular plane, but the truth is actually quite far from this perception. Da-da-da-dum. Yes. Dramatic. Hi-Fly gets a lot of stick for having an A380 ready to wet lease. The company acquired the 10-year-old aircraft in 2018 after Singapore Airlines decided against renewing the lease. Having given it a grand new look, Hi-Fly has been offering it out for hire ever since. Plenty of onlookers, analysts and armchair critics openly condemn the airline for investing in the giant jumbo. With many airlines phasing out the A380, most can't believe that there is even a market for such a large plane, particularly on an ad hoc basis. However, in a recent interview with Simple Flying, Hi-Fly's CEO, Dr. Paolo Mipuri, told us that the demand for the A380 actually far outstrips supply, with the airline receiving around 30 requests a day for the plane. So why don't we see it in the skies more often? Dr. Mipuri describes the A380 as remarkable and sings its praises in terms of reliability and sophistication of the technology on board. Indeed, he's clearly a massive fan of the type, having bequeathed 3 letters of his surname to the registration of the aircraft, which is Niner Hotel Mike India Papa. But why is demand so low for the type? Dr. Mipuri told us that actually it's not. He said, in terms of demand, we receive on a daily basis around 30 requests for the aircraft. He went on to explain why we don't see the aircraft busy at work more often, saying, we face one problem, which is the accessibility of the aircraft to a number of airports. So unfortunately, we have to reject the majority of requests, and we have to send alternative aircraft, even if the client initially wants the A380, and that is because the airport or city selected is not compatible with A380 operations. Taking a look at the flight data for this aircraft, it's certainly not in demand right now. Apart from a trip to Jeddah and back this week, the aircraft has not worked at all since October. But this is the quiet season, so likely the airline would expect to have low demand for the aircraft. Prior to 7th of October, however, the aircraft has been in almost constant use right through since late May last year. And it sounds like there would have been many more jobs for it too if only the infrastructure was in place. The unleasable plane is proving its worth. This goes on. Do you want me to carry on, Carlos?
No, I was just going to ask, Pip, have you flown the 380, Pip?
No, I have not.
No?
No. I know you guys have been on this exact aircraft at Farnborough, haven't you?
That was Farnborough, wasn't it? A few years
it
back.
was, yeah.
Nev, yeah.
That aircraft? You've been...
Yep,
Oh, wow.
that actual one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's ex-Singapore Airlines, the high-flow one.
No reason to doubt his claim of 30 requests a day, but the way that
a request could just be an email.
exactly. Well, the way that the brokerages work, they just kind of just bombard. They send out like emails, kind of spam them almost, saying, we've got a need for an aircraft for 2 passengers, and they'll just send it to everyone. So whether he counts that as a request for an A380, possibly.
I think everyone in the room should take out their phone and send an email to info@highfly.com and request an A380.
Yeah, it's a bit sad. I'm really sad to see the 380 go, actually. I think it's a mistake. Over time, we'll see, especially here at Heathrow, we have congested airports, the 380. It's very hard to make it work economically. I think only Emirates was able to make it work, but if you make it work, it actually works super well. And for congested airports, the 777X, whenever it arrives, will probably help, but it's still not as big as the 380. Talking about leasing the 380, probably you guys talked about it in a previous show that I haven't heard. I'm really sorry, but the Malaysian leased the 380 for the rescue operation of Thomas Cook. So the 380s is actually the high fly one. I think was in a previous, was it Monarch? I think they used that for rescue. To repatriate people that are being left stranded after these huge demises of airlines. And that high fly was, I think, used by Norwegian when Norwegian had to put some of the Dreamliners off their fleet to make the Rolls-Royce repairs as well. So I don't know. It doesn't seem to be an aircraft that is used for many other reasons, sadly, these type of wet leases.
Whilst I've not flown on the A380, once or twice when I've been with BA, I think mostly, and they've not, for whatever reason, the aircraft has gone tech and they've had to call in one of these wet lease providers. A few times a 747 has shown up, which is actually quite good because, by the time the aircraft's in place, you've maybe got 3 plane loads of people who need transporting. So a big plane like that is actually quite useful.
Nick, you used to fly the 340, obviously, 4-engine aircraft. Why do you think the 380s failed?
Economics, purely. The cost of per seat mile of a 380, even if you manage to get it fairly full, the profit margin is not as great as a big twin. And that's purely the maintenance cost on those extra 2 engines and the fuel burn. So it was an airplane that could have done very well had we not been suffering the consequences of higher oil costs. So, it was just bought in too late. 747 was there to corner the market for the massive aircraft carrying big loads of passengers. Airbus thought about it. It took them so long to bring the aircraft in, and then of course there were the delays because they made a major design error in building it, and they couldn't get the 2 parts of the fuselage to meet properly, and that delayed it. So all that coincided with yet another rise in fuel costs, and just as airlines were trying to scale down the cost of operating, now they presented with these vast airplanes, which of course they can make a profit, but it's not nearly as good as you get off a big twin.
And I think they were also very unlucky with the timing, just to add to what you just said, is that because of the delay of Airbus delivering that aircraft, it arrived in 2008, which was a financial crisis. So that's the worst possible time for investing such money. 2 years earlier, because it was a very high time for flying, some airlines might have bet more money at the start. But it was doomed from the start, like BA bought. How many does BA have? Like 10? 12, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the original order was for many more,
Exactly,
but it only
right,
accepted 12 in the end.
Yeah.
Virgin Mild Outfit, we had an order in for several, and we never ever were going to fulfill that order because we could see it was going to be a dead end for us. It was just too expensive to operate. And to be fair, even those airlines that have committed themselves to it do complain at the cost of maintenance as well. So it has had other problems, not just the fact that it's a big 4-engine airplane.
Sorry to grab the microphone again, but again, to add to your point, there was a fascinating interview by Tim Clark, so the chairman of Emirates, and he says, to your point, he says that only now, in 2019 actually, so that was last year, he's happy where the 380 was. All the things that you mentioned were ironed out over more than a decade, and now he's happy, and now this is why he's actually very unhappy that the plane is being shut down, because right now is where it should have been from the start, and that's where Airbus is killing the project.
The thing is, it's actually a very popular aircraft for passengers.
Yeah.
I've flown several legs, long legs, in the back of a 380 from Dubai down to Perth in Australia. And sitting down the back of economy, it is really quite spacious. It is beautifully quiet. It's very smooth. And it's a delightful aircraft for passenger experience. You may not be enamored with the look of it from the outside, but when you're inside, it's quite palatial. And from that point, it's great. And I know the pilots love it. The technology on the flight deck, the way the aircraft handles. I just have to chat to Stefan, who's one of our great friends on the APG show, who's the captain of the 380. And it really has got some fantastic technology in the front end, and is a lovely airplane to fly.
So Armando, I'm going to pass the last story over to you. This one's about one of the greatest airlines in the US.
I don't know if we have the same story then. So recently, Delta Airlines announced that it will be introducing new additions to its in-flight entertainment system. Passengers of the airline will be able to enjoy features such as a binge button on their IFE. This button will enable passengers to sit back and enjoy the ride while watching their favorite programs without interruption. Furthermore, the airline is piloting a recommended for you feature that will suggest curated content based on what the passenger has already watched. So additionally, Delta will experiment with tools such as a do not disturb or a wake me up for meal service signal for its passengers in the main cabin on certain long haul operations. These initiatives have been developed on the back of the work that its branch Delta Flight Products has conducted. The startup was founded in 2016 with just 10 employees, but it has gone on to hold 300 members. They've been working on developing innovative products such as the carrier's new wireless IFE system, already in service on the A220, A330-900s, and modified 767-400s. Now, the airline wants to advance on this system by introducing new features this year. There has been speculation that several airlines could pay much less attention to in-flight entertainment screens by the time this decade is over. This is because firms will continue to focus on providing content to passengers' mobile devices, with greater wireless connectivity continuing to emerge. However, Tim Mapes, the Chief of Marketing and Communications for Delta, has shared his airline and its passengers will still value what they have on offer. Our research tells us that customers really enjoy and appreciate entertainment. It is their ultimate de-stressor in flight. That's why we keep extending our position as the entertainment airline and continue growing our in-house expertise through Delta Flight Products, allowing us to explore a future where captivating content becomes part of the entire customer journey, not just the air. We've talked a little bit about different technologies coming out on this show with different screens, different high definition screens, and Wi-Fi services on different aircraft. I know now that I'm flying more and more, I'm keeping a naughty list and a nice list of who has the best in-flight Wi-Fi and entertainment. And so we'll see what Delta comes up with.
I mean, surely this is the future, though, is it not? Because I mean, you think passengers are carrying the tablets anyway. Surely it's much more cost effective in the long run to just put like USB chargers in every seat so that they can keep their tablet topped up and keep it functioning. I mean, you take that away. I mean, I suppose you still got the weight of the servers and things obviously doling out the content in air, but that's got to be lighter than, headrests, monitors and all that kind of thing. I mean, surely it's the future.
Steph, you flew here obviously last night. What was your entertainment like?
So the aircraft that I flew over on has not had
It was
a
pre-war, wasn't it?
update or refurbishment clearly to their. It was business class, but it was an older model. So, yeah, it was. It wasn't anything.
What was the airline?
It was American.
Oh, okay.
But I've flown with them plenty of times where their newer outfitted aircraft are much higher tech.
TFT displays.
How about for Captain Jeff on the panel? What is it like flying for an airline that directly competes with apparently the world's entertainment airline?
It's very annoying, especially in the airplane that I fly that has no entertainment system at all.
You are the entertainment, Jeff.
That's not true.
You are
My PAs are the
Your
entertainment
mustache
system.
is the entertainment system.
Hey, I will say one thing real quick, that the do not disturb and the wake me for a meal service signals, however an airline chooses to do that. I've only ever flown with one airline that actually did that, and that was Turkish Airlines. Highly underrated, I think, because especially if you're on a long flight, if you do want to catch a nap, but then you also want your breakfast when that service comes around, it's nice to have a way to say, hey, it's okay, you can tap me on the shoulder and get me up, I'd like to eat.
So does the do not disturb apply to the PAs coming from the cockpit?
No.
Yeah,
Sadly, no.
I'd be
You
very,
can't
very
tune
upset
out
with
those annoying pilots telling you that we're 30 minutes from touchdown and the weather's
But
whatever.
I mean, surely the PAs that are coming in from the cockpit though are obviously very important. I mean, every single word must be hung upon immediately.
At least they are when I'm doing it.
Well,
But what I don't like, and I don't know why Acme allows this to keep happening, but the ads for like the American Express card. That's just
Those are the
that
worst.
annoys me, and I'm not even a target customer for that.
This is why Matt, you were saying is it the future? I'm like, first of all, I've spoken to a lot of staff who tell me if you only have a Wi-Fi delivery system of entertainment, they are becoming tech support, because you have half of the people and they're like, I cannot make this work, I don't have the right tablet, I forgot to download the app I was supposed to download on the ground before to try it. So sometimes and for me, that's to your point, Jeff, is like, they stream you ads. So I'd rather just have my iPad with my own stuff that is not linked with whatever airline I'm currently flying from. So I'd rather maybe basically have nothing.
Well, I think then there's obviously a gap in the market there for me, in-flight tech support. I think that's I think that could be a job me and Nev could nail. I think really, yeah.
You better copyright that now.
Yeah, quick, yeah. Somebody write it down.
So that's the last news story, but we had a message sent in from Captain Al earlier on in the show. Since we've been live, Captain Al has sent us a video in. Now, Matt's not had a chance to look at this video.
I haven't looked at this yet. So
And
I pressed this play button here with great fear in my
so
heart.
we'll hand the show over to Captain Al.
I mean, it's 45 seconds long. What harm can he do in 45
Matt, you're so sweet to think that.
Good luck, everyone. Here we go.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be. It's Captain Al here. Unfortunately, some of us have to commit aviation today and can't make the show. As you can see, I've got an engine right behind me. You don't have to be an aviation geek to know that. So I'm sorry I can't make it, but some of us have to commit flying today to keep Greta happy. That behind me is the nose wheel of an A321. It's still attached to the aircraft and not through the forward galley floor. And it's a pretty robust mechanism, so if you've seen some of the pictures on the internet recently, that takes some doing. But you'd have to ask Captain Nick, because he's the expert in those sort of landings. Anyway, have a great show, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!
Nick?
How much damage in 45 seconds?
That's him off my Christmas card list.
Well, I think we got away with that quite lightly, I'll be honest. Yeah. Okay.
Any story to go along with that, Nick, or is that...
No, I've seen the incident that he refers to, and actually when you manage to push the bulkhead that the nose wheel gear is attached to up through the floor by about 18 inches, such that it's protruding into the cabin, takes some doing. So I've no idea how that particular A320 pilot managed to mishandle the aircraft so badly. But needless to say, when you're flying the longest airliner in the world, as I did when I was doing that, you do that a lot more gently.
You're a safe pilot, I know, Nick. So for those of you who've been watching the show recently, you know that a few months back now, Nev, that you went off with Captain Nick, and you went and had a chat with John Hutchinson, didn't you? And I have to say, Nick, obviously we've played the first episode out of that on the show, and I'll take it, if most of you have seen the interview with John Hutchinson, yeah, it's been fantastic, really enjoyed it. And just quickly before we play out the second part, Nick, how was the day?
It was a lovely day. He's such a fine gentleman. It was an absolute pleasure to sit beside him and chat to him. It was like two old Air Force buddies and airline pilots getting together and just talking shop for a while. It was an absolute delight. He's a super guy. He's got a beautiful house, as you'd expect. Yeah, it was a really nice, relaxed day, and I thoroughly enjoyed the interview. I only wish I'd got the memo about the socks. Otherwise, I
have to say that was one of the biggest comments that we had. Yes. Feedback about the whole interview was the coordination between you and John. The socks.
He has very sexy ankles.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So without further ado, we're going to play part 2 right now.
Later on in your career, you would become a flying instructor. Would your experiences as a student have affected you and in the way you taught the people to fly that you came across?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Made you perhaps a more understanding and sympathetic instructor?
Yes. I mean, I have one great regret. I had a wonderful student who'd come up through the ranks, and he was passionately keen on flying, and he wasn't a natural pilot. And I was determined to get him through, absolutely determined. And I did get him through. And he ended up on C-130s, and very sadly ended up crashing in a C-130. I can't remember, from Lynham maybe, or was it Brize Norton? I can't remember.
Could well have been Lynham, or it could have been either, actually.
Yeah, could have been either, I just can't remember. But I've always sort of felt perhaps I shouldn't have tried so hard to get him through. Perhaps he really wasn't a natural pilot. I don't know.
Yeah, that was the only thing I ever think back as an instructor, when you had someone eventually who you had to give the bad news to, that they weren't going to progress, was that perhaps in the future you were saving their life. But yeah,
I got really emotionally involved with this guy, and it became a sort of absolute overriding challenge for me. I was determined, because he was so enthusiastic and so keen, and I do often think, maybe I didn't do him any favours.
I hope not. I hope that wasn't the case.
No, I hope not too.
I see you moved on to jet training on the T-33 Silver Star at Gimli. Now that airfield would of course become famous for another reason.
Didn't it?
But what was it like then?
That was a complete contrast to Moose Jaw. And we were there in the summer, and there's a beach on the lake there, and there were all sorts of pretty girls there in bikinis. So when we weren't flying, we were down on the beach. It was a very, very different setup altogether. And the T-33 was a lovely aeroplane, very benign handling, and very strong, robust aeroplane, and just a delight to fly.
Was it
I
quick?
loved it.
Was it fast?
I said sort of Mach 0.8, that sort of speed, yeah.
Very nice.
But it was a very nice aeroplane.
Now I read that you lost a fellow student during training. The same happened to me. How did it affect you?
Yeah, this was a NATO training scheme that I was there under the auspices of. So we had all these different people from different NATO countries on my course, and this was a Turkish chap. Ermin, I think his name was. Very elegant, very well educated, very classy man, and a very good pilot as well. And I don't know what happened, but he speared in from 40,000 feet straight into Lake Winnipeg.
Good Lord.
I can only assume he was unconscious for some reason or another. We'll never know. His body was recovered, and it was a fairly shocking experience going to his funeral.
Did the students, was there any effort made by the staff to ease the students through this, or was it all very much as I would have expected it to be in those times, all sort of get on with, it's all business, get on with it?
This is what happens, just get on with it.
Interesting.
I've never had this experience of being cancelled. I'm afraid.
No.
I firmly believe that, things happen to you, stuff happens, you've got to deal with it and just get on with life. And the worst example of that for me was our eldest son dying, which is catastrophic. And you don't ever get over that. Never. You'd learn to live with it. But there's no, it's no good going on and on about it. It's happened. Nothing's going to change that. And it's no memorial to him if you sort of collapse in a heap. You've just got to get on.
I understand.
My sadness in that is that we didn't appreciate the impact it had on his younger brother. We were so obsessed with our own grief, Sue and I, that we rather sidelined him. And it was only years later that it suddenly all came pouring out from him.
It's very difficult, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It's not like anyone prepares you for this.
Nobody prepares you for a thing like that, no. No. And neither of us ever had any counselling about that terrible experience either.
But it seems like your family is a happy family.
Oh yeah, we've only got the one son. We're extremely close to him. We've got 3 wonderful grandchildren, one of whom is at Cambridge University and doing, I think she'll be quite an exceptional lady. She's a very good actress, but she's the sort of person who's very motivated. I think her problem is going to be deciding what she's going to do with her life.
What a problem to have.
What a problem to have, yeah.
Let's move on to your time flying the Venom. I was somewhat alarmed to read that you lost your canopy. That's a pretty serious situation. Could you talk us through that?
It wasn't a Venom, it was a Vampire.
A Vampire, okay.
Vampire T11.
Who wrote these questions? Sorry, do carry on.
Never flown a Venom.
Okay.
Actually, that's an interesting question because I can't remember if it was a T11 that I was flying. I think it would have been a Vampire 5. It would be a Vampire 5 or a 9. And I'm just flying along and suddenly there was this loud bang. And I was sitting out there in the open, much to my surprise. I mean, the airplane still flew all right. So I descended, came back and landed. I was based at RAF Worksop, which of course doesn't even... I've met somebody from Worksop not so long ago, and he didn't even know there had been an RAF airfield.
Oh, it's probably a pig farm.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. But so I had to assure him that I was actually posted to RAF Worksop in 1957. I promise you, there really was an RAF airfield there. Anyway, I went back and landed, and in fact, the canopy had come off. I don't know where on earth it landed. I have no idea. But with the Vampire, it was sort of twin booms with a sort of tailplane that went between the 2 booms. The canopy had hit the the bit between the two booms and left a massive, great. I mean, almost severed it completely.
Wow, you're lucky it didn't.
Which might have been interesting.
Oh,
if
it would
that
have
had
been
happened.
very interesting, no doubt. Oh, I'm glad you didn't come home and do a barrel roll in there.
No,
Was it a bit noisy?
It was quite noisy, yes.
Could you actually hear anyone on the radio?
I think I must have done.
Well, good for you. Excellent. Excellent. Now, obviously, you did well in your training and were recommended for fighters. Indeed, the marvellous Hawker Hunter. What happened? You were posted to heavies in the end.
Yeah, that was a crushing moment in my life, I can tell you. It's all I wanted to do was fly Hunters. Duncan Sands, the Minister of Aviation, or Minister for Air, or whatever his title was, I don't know, Secretary of State for Air, made this great pronouncement that they weren't going to require fighter pilots any longer. It was all going to be done with surface-to-air missiles. And not one of our course went on to fighters.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
I was one of the lucky 4 who went to Coastal Command. And I say lucky 4 because in Coastal Command you were fully trained and it was sort of sector by sector, just like in the airline world. You know, the captain would do one sector, then the co-pilot the next. You were a fully trained pilot. In Transport Command in those days, my understanding was from the chaps who went into Transport Command that basically, to start with, they were there for no other purpose than to lower undercarriages, raise the flaps and do the communications.
Oh.
I mean, that's all long since changed, but the culture in Coastal Command, even back then, was that the co-pilot had to be fully trained and, you know, it had to do half the flying sort of thing. And I was on the Mark I Shackleton, so that was a tail dragger, direct descendant of the Lancaster, and looking back on it now, I'm very proud of the fact that I've in effect flown the Lancaster. And it was a fantastic aeroplane, the Shackleton. I mean, I don't know how long it was in service for, from start to finish, but it must.
Oh,
be
a little
something,
too long, I think.
It must have been something like 45 or 45 years.
Well,
or
it was
something.
still going when I was in the Air Force for many years.
Yeah, absolutely. And the great thing was about this that I was actually posted out to Singapore, to 205 Squadron, based at RAF Changi. And we look at Changi now and it's a bit different. But in those days it was a rather splendid RAF airfield. And they had a Far East Communications Squadron, Far East Air Force Communications Squadron. And they had Pembrokes, Meteors and Vampires. And I went down to that Far East Comm Squadron and said, hey, any chance of getting some flying when I wasn't flying Shackletons? They said, absolutely. That Comm Squadron was there for all the chaps in headquarters and the Far East Air Force headquarters for them to keep their hands in. Nobody seemed to want to do that. So they were very happy for me to come along and do some flying. So I used to go flying Vampires and Meteors and Pembrokes to my heart's content.
Who did your conversion?
Well, one of the chaps on the Comm Squadron.
Love it.
I mean, it's just a different world, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Very hard to imagine
1958 this was.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I used to go bombing around over the Malayan jungle, low level. Just flying for the sheer fun of it. The CNC of the Far East Air Force was the most wondrous gentleman, Air Chief Marshal the Earl of Bandon, who was known as the Abandoned Earl. And he was a legend in his lifetime. He was an extraordinary man. He was one of those men. He didn't need to be in the Air Force for a career. He was in the Air Force because he loved the Air Force. And he wasn't frightened about what he said or did. He was the sort of man you'd have followed over the trenches in the Battle of the Somme, leading from the front.
Excellent.
Wonderful, wonderful chap.
Excellent.
I had a very happy time in Singapore, as you can probably gather.
I think we both would have done had I had a chance to go there.
I had a
Sound
ball.
marvellous.
I had a ball there. Sadly, I ended up getting some sort of tropical gut rot and had to be casevaced back in a Comet back to Lynham. And I was grounded for about 3 months. And I was based at Northwood during those 3 months. And the medical problem sorted itself out, and it's never recurred since. So I don't know exactly what it was, but I've then ended up going to Little Rissington in the summer of 1960 and did the flying instructor's course there. And that without doubt was the best course in terms of learning about your approach to flying that I've ever done in my life. It was a fantastic course, and it was a lovely summer, and Little Rissington is a lovely place to be in the heart of Gloucestershire, and I made some very good friends during that course who remain friends to this day. And during the course, by the way, they said anybody who has never flown a Hunter can have an opportunity to fly a Hunter if they'd like. So I said, yes, please. And I went down to Kemble, and they only had, I think it was a Hunter 6, single-seater. They just gave me a thorough briefing, strapped a checklist onto my knee, put me in the cockpit, made sure everything was all set up properly, closed the lid, and there I was on my own. And I think my emotions ranged from sheer terror to exhilaration in equal measures.
It was quite a rocket ship, wasn't it?
And I did 3 flights in that Hunter.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I first went supersonic in a sort of power dive over the Bristol Channel. And I got to 1.01 or something. And got a certificate to prove it. And it just, I mean, it was obviously an airplane I would have loved to have flown. There's no question about that. Classy airplane.
Absolutely sweet, yes. Absolutely.
I think it's safe to say that that was a really good start or second part to there's obviously more. How many more parts is there to come now, Neb? We've got
about another 7, I think.
7 parts, I see, yeah. But I think we should give, whilst everyone's here, I think we should just give a quick round of applause to Nick and Neb. Excellent job.
Well, as you can tell, I really didn't have to do much at all, really. Once you kicked John off, he just told the most wonderful stories. So thank you very much, but it's not deserved.
So moving on with the next part of the show. So let's move on to the Christmas competition.
Did I win? Of course I won.
Yeah, for those of you who watch the show, you'll know that Nick sent his answers in via audio. You weren't far off, I suppose, on some of the answers, Nick.
100%. What are you talking about?
Oh, is that the APG statistics? So that
APG,
I mean, it was better than 50%.
If it's 50, that's 100.
Yeah, 50% equals 100%.
So yeah, we had the Christmas competition answers in. Now we're going to put the answers into Captain Nick's hat, and I think there we go. That's everyone's names in there. So the first question we asked was, what year did Concord, Foxtrot Bravo Tango Sierra Delta get a Pepsi branded logo on? So Concord did actually have a Pepsi branded logo on the aircraft, which I think it stopped it flying at.
Yeah, apparently the majority of it had to be white to keep the temperature down. And when they put the Pepsi on, a lot of it was blue, and so they couldn't really take it to high speed.
So that was 1996. That was. Next one was, what type of aircraft was the Gimli glider?
Someone's just lost the chance to win.
You can't
Captain
win
Jeff,
anymore,
what was
sorry.
that one? The answer?
I think it's
767.
767-200.
That was correct. Yeah, very much so. The third question on the list was, in the film Die Hard 2, which I'm sure most people have seen, What type of aircraft was Windsor Flight 114 based on?
Here's your big moment.
I think it was DC-8.
Well done,
Carlos?
Jonathan. Mr. Warner, well done. Okay, let's see if you can get this next one, Mr. Warner. So the where in the world is the longest publicly used paved runway?
Seething.
And before anyone says, no, it's not Norwich.
Anyone?
Norwich.
Go on, I'm up now.
Edwards?
Oh, hang on to the back.
Edwards or the Space Shuttle?
Leadville? Leadville?
Anyone else know? It was Quamda. I'm going to try and get this right. I could never do that. We should give these to Matt, really. The answer was Quamdo Bamda Airport in China, 18,045 feet, or 5,500 metres.
Why?
So even Pip could land there.
We could just get in.
Yeah.
I could land a Cessna 172 there, I don't even know how many times. Quite a lot. On the same.
Next one, where I wasn't going to bring the seething landings up for the yeah. If you see those at the flying, yeah, yeah. We're not going to go down that route.
We're in trouble now, buddy.
Next one on the list was where in the world is the highest altitude airport? Now this one I definitely should give to Matt. Daocheng Yading Airport in China, which sits at 14,472 feet above sea level. So there we go. Next one. This one was quite a few people missed this, but this is the major variant of the 737. So this is not including the kind of Poseidons and all the other kind of weird and wonderful variations of the 737, but the main variants of the 737 was 13 of those if you look in total. So you've got the 737 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, the MAX 7, MAX 8, MAX 9 and MAX 10 to the newest one. So that's 13. Here's a good one for the audience. What year did the first Airbus A380 enter service with launch customer Singapore Airlines? Anyone?
2007.
Did you look at the answers there?
No.
Are you lying?
Sure, it says 2008. Anyone else?
2007.
2007.
Point.
One of you is going to get it if you just keep saying numbers.
1843.
Adam knows the answer.
Adam knows.
2007.
There you have it.
2007, correct. That's right. So number 8, we'll ask this one to Nev. The BA, obviously, what was the flight number of BA's last Concord flight on the 24th of October 2003? If you get this wrong, Nev, you're never going to live it down.
No, it's one of those 91 or 93 series, isn't it? I would imagine something like that.
The flight number? BA's
Yes.
last?
Yeah. I don't actually know.
I would have had a 50% chance of getting this
That's
right.
okay. Matt
I only know
will edit that in
two
post.
Anyone in the audience?
Sweeper too.
Well done.
Wow.
Okay, next one. What date? Now, this one threw a lot of people off. What date was the first live PTUK podcast broadcast on YouTube? And that's our official
That's possibly because
YouTube.
it's the most ambiguous question you
I
have
know.
ever asked anyone.
So this is the actual day that we broadcast live. So the actual day. But this has been looked up. It's the 21st of August 2015. Yeah, trust me, it's right. It's correct. Matt, he's contested this ever since.
The only reason I'm querying it is because we did do a test stream that was on my channel first.
But that's not on the P2K official YouTube channel. Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Okay.
The last question we're going to put to Adam. Because if Adam gets this wrong,
Go ahead, take that sip
then
first.
a lot of people out there are going to be in trouble. So which runway at London Heathrow Airport is the longest runway?
The northern, 3,902 metres.
There we go.
Versus 3,658 on the other side.
This has got I've written here. Well done. Wow. Thanks, Adam.
I mean, you'd hope that Adam would get that right. Do you need to lie down now, Adam? It's a bit tense.
He didn't know I was going to ask him, to be fair.
Runway 23 was 1,966.
And I landed on that one in an A340.
You're officially that old.
Yeah. And it was very short.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, that too.
So prizes. So we did get some really, really good prizes this year. So we're going to go.
We didn't bring the plate, did we?
No, we didn't. I didn't bring the plate because I didn't want to risk
breaking
the plate. So yeah.
So you're going to leave that to Royal Mail instead?
We'll leave that.
Well, can you get insurance on it?
I was going to leave it to Hermes, but we really wanted to get to the winner before 20 million
stop it.
years' time.
Anyway,
moving on. So we're going to start from the far right. So we've got the first one on the list is the Beaufighter book here. So if we're going to pull out the prize for that one out of the cap. So Dr. Steph.
Do you know what? It'd be really handy if some of the people who've won are actually in the room.
That would be handy.
Let's see what I can do here.
I thought you were going to say in the hat.
You're right.
I can pull a whole person out of this hat?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Okay.
All right, here for first prize.
Well,
David Kavanagh.
David Kavanagh.
Yeah. Did you spell that right?
I did spell that
okay.
right, yeah.
David Kavanagh.
Look at that.
Okay, so well done.
All right, and while you're here, I'm going to put the
that with
name
the book.
into the book. So
Thank
we know.
you. And next book on the list, DH9
Hold it in front of the
Restoration.
wide shot one. Pip.
All right. Ooh, this is a smaller piece of paper than the last one. Presumably
Budget
a
cuts.
smaller name. Jan Hubner.
Jan Hubner.
Jan.
There we are.
All right. Sorry for
I'm going to give it to you,
mispronouncing your name.
Carlos. You can present it.
Oh, okay.
Here.
Yeah. Just got to hope he's got room in his hand luggage now to get that.
So next book, Pip, I can't. There we go. That's the
Stuka Attack
book.
Stuka Attack. Okay. I feel like these have been folded together such that I almost pull out like 4 pieces of paper at a time. Okay. And this one goes to Mark Alexander.
Woo!
Mark Alexander.
All right, Mark. Woohoo.
That's it. Put that there, ready for Royal Mail.
Yes.
Well done.
Do you know, this is why we're so glad Steph is here. She's so very organised.
I know.
I have nothing to do with the
Next
organization
book.
here.
Pip, what's the next one?
This War Amongst the Clouds by Air Vice Marshal Hugh Granville White.
All right, and this one goes to Ray Davis.
Ray Davis.
Oh, you're going to have
well done, Ray.
pay for some shipping there. I have to pay for some shipping there. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll. That's got to go to Australia, so we'll sort that in
Yeah,
half.
it'll get there like 2 years from now.
That's fine.
Yeah. Don't worry, Ray. You'll get that for Christmas.
Yeah, just in time for Christmas 22. Yeah.
So the next 2 prizes we haven't got here, but they are because they're in frames. I didn't want to destroy them on the way here. So we've got 2 3D. You probably saw if you watched the show. We've got 2 3D pictures. One's the Red Arrows and one's a Spitfire. It's just really that's one of the old school 3D pictures, the colour pictures that are quite popular many years ago. So the first one is the Red Arrows one. So if you want to pick a name from the hat.
And the prize will go to Graham Haley.
Oh,
great.
And he's actually here.
He just turned up.
He's
Did he just get
he's
here?
actually here.
Yeah, he's there. Stand up, Graham.
Typical, I didn't.
There you go.
Well done, Graham. Just ping me your address later, Graham. I'll send them out. Don't worry. So next one is the Spitfire picture, which is also a 3D picture as well.
Actually,
in a frame.
Graham, I'm actually here next weekend, so I'll bring him up. There you go.
All right, and for the Spitfire picture, Mark Heffer.
Mark Heffer. Well done.
Okay.
We'll put those.
Leave those.
Right, so we must be at grand prize time now. Is that correct?
It is. So the grand prize. There's 2 parts to this. One part is the Concord Haynes manual, which is signed by John Hutchinson with a little note in there as well. In the here we go. Pip can have a.
It says, "Dear Captain Nick, get stuffed."
Worst interview ever.
It says, "I was never too much into engineering. I always relied on the wonderful team of engineers to keep her serviceable. I was just one of the privileged pilots who flew her." John Hutchinson. Very nice.
So with that prize, there's also a limited edition Concord Last Flight plate, which is, for those of you who watch the show, you've probably seen it on there. We did have it in the studio, but it is back in the studio safe, and that goes with that book as well. And it is, like I said, a limited edition plate. There was only just over 2,000, I think, that was made of the plate. So that will be part of this prize. So for the top winner,
a 1 in 3 chance.
Here we go.
All the marbles. Here we go. So 1 in 3. There's only 3 in here.
Yeah,
there are. Lots of pressure here. All right. I am feeling a lot of pressure personally. I don't know why. This one goes to Stephen Taylor.
Yay!
Yay!
Are you still there, Armando, or have you nodded off?
So, do you want to know who got the right answers but didn't get a prize? Well, you might be nice, because at least you know you got all the answers right.
True.
Go on then.
Masha.
Poor Masha.
Masha. And Stephen Hitchin. So you did very well to do answer all those correctly, because some of them were trick questions. And I still think the Sea of Tranquility is the highest airfield. I don't know how you guys can top that.
Indeed.
So we're going to do the plane tale next.
We'll do the plane tale next then, Nick. So a quick brief of what it's about. Or is it gonna? This
is something about 300, and there's not many subjects in aviation you can find about 300. So partly told before, but an expanded version. I've never done a plane tale live. And for those of you who've listened to my outtakes, you'll know why, because it takes a considerable effort to get through the whole thing without fluffing. So
I'm glad this is being recorded, so we can just keep those live
That's
outtakes.
Right. So whenever you're ready, Matt, we'll give it a go. There aren't many aircraft named 300. There's a Lemon 300, the Bombardier Challenger 300, an Extra 300, and probably a few others. But the one I want to talk about today is an Airbus A380. The A380 was Airbus's very first aircraft, and it took to the air in 1972. It has the distinction of being the world's first twin-engine wide-body airliner, as well as the world's first ETOPS airliner. It was a very successful design that often goes unnoticed amongst the plethora of high-profile airliners out there. But there was one event that put it into the history books. Sadly, it's rarely remembered. Let me tell you about it. In 2003, a US-led coalition of forces invaded Iraq. The attack lasted just over a month, after which President George W. Bush declared mission accomplished. But for some, that declaration was a little premature, since the conflict was about to enter another phase. It would become a guerrilla war, which continued to fester well into the next decade. The Fedayeen Saddam was not part of Iraq's regular armed forces, but rather it operated as a paramilitary unit of irregulars. As a result of this, the Fedayeen reported directly to the presidential palace rather than through the military chain of command. Whereas the Iraqi army and the Republican Guard quickly collapsed, Fedayeen forces put up stiff resistance to the coalition invasion. They entrenched themselves in the cities and launched guerrilla-style attacks on supply convoys. The fall of Baghdad effectively ended their existence as an organized paramilitary, but they would continue well after. Some of its members died during the war, but a large number survived and were willing to carry on the fight even after the fall of Saddam Hussein from power. It's now November, some months after the invasion, and the French reporter Claudine Venier-Paliez, writing for the sensationalist Paris Match news magazine, has made contact with a Fedayeen unit near Baghdad and somehow earned their trust. The magazine claims that she's there to investigate why these rebels continued to fight against US forces in Iraq, but what she witnesses is something truly shocking. 3 cars are at their disposal, she writes. They start off in a column. We don't know where they're taking us. They stop in a cloud of dust some kilometers further on and recover a ground-to-air missile, SAM-7, wrapped in white fabric and hidden in a thicket at the edge of a dirt track. We now know that the weapon was actually a Russian Strela 3, known to NATO as an SA-14 Gremlin. It's an all-aspect, man-pullable, shoulder-fired air defense missile and a much improved version of the earlier SA-7 Grail. It has a nitrogen-cooled lead sulfide infrared homing seeker head more sensitive and capable than its predecessor. About 1.5 meters long, it can comfortably fit in a golf bag and would make an impressive driver. When fired, it can accelerate to over 900 miles an hour. That's around Mach 1.7, climb to an altitude of over 7,500 feet, and is armed with a blast fragmentation warhead that weighs over 1 kilo. That's about 2.2 pounds. The missile has a proximity and contact fuse which detonates the warhead when it comes close to or strikes its target. When ignited, the warhead explodes, creating damage in 2 ways. The shock wave generated causes targets with large volume to explode from the internal pressure changes. Approximately 30% of the energy released by the explosive is used to break up the casing and impart kinetic energy to the fragments. The flying debris expands into a ball of shrapnel, which can slice through the thin skin of an aircraft like the cuts of 1,000 knives. At Baghdad Airport, an Airbus A380, registration OODLL, was being operated by the Belgium company, European Air Transport, on behalf of DHL, and was beginning a scheduled flight to Bahrain. The aircraft was far from new. It began life with Malaysia Airlines in 1975 and was then taken on by Carnival in 1995, part of the Cruise Lines company, before joining AAT as a cargo airliner. It was only carrying about 7 tons of cargo, having delivered mail and other essentials to American troops based in Baghdad. There was only the crew on board, the 2 Belgian pilots, Captain Eric Janotti and First Officer Steve Mickelson, plus a British flight engineer, Mario Raphael, who hailed from Scotland. The captain was 38 and had a good amount of experience with over 3,000 hours, half on the A300. The crew prepared their aircraft and briefed the departure, which included a special takeoff procedure to reduce the time that they would be spending on the ground and during the initial climb when they would be exposed to any threats. They were going to take off without any flaps, only using the slats with maximum thrust, toga, and at the speed which would give them the best angle of climb, 215 knots. The Australian air traffic personnel working at Baghdad cleared the aircraft for takeoff, and soon it was approaching 8,000 feet, on its way to 10,000 feet, where it would be completely safe from attack. The French journalist continued her story. The head of the commandos tells us that 1 day prior he had spotted a DHL Airbus which was flying at low level. We never fire on the civil aircraft, but at that time I did not know what DHL was doing. Afterwards, when a friend of mine explained that these aircraft transported GI's mail, I regretted a little my intentions. That would mean depriving the soldiers of the letters from their mothers and wives. But the next time I fire, the sun rises and draws red shades upon the men who have just begun to take up their weapons and prepare for the operation. A peasant passes, his shovel on his back. He understands what is underway and simply says, God blesses you and supports your action, before moving away quietly towards his field of tomatoes. Suddenly, the leader pricks up his ears and scans the sky. He leaps up and shouts, "A plane! You there, at the ready. This time you'll have to fire." The nitrogen bottle in the launcher's body has cooled the infrared seeker head as the A300 climbs. Eventually it becomes operational and acquires the heat source, the General Electric CF6 engines. It's a simple missile to operate. All the user has to do is visually acquire the target, activate the automatic target lock, and launch the missile by pulling a trigger. The seeker head howls, the head of the commando screams, "Fire!" The starting booster runs for about half a second and the missile leaps away from the launcher. Then the propellant charge takes over and it spirals upwards in a stabilizing spin as it rockets towards the A300. The second missile is fired, and at 9:18 in the morning, the first missile hits the target's left wing. The second missile misses, but regardless, the leader jumps for joy like a child and lifts up his hands to the sky. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Passing 8,000 feet on the climb out, Captain Gianotti was nearly safe. The missile had a theoretical maximum engagement altitude of 7,500 feet, but belting upwards at nearly 1,500 feet a second, it's overtaken the aircraft. Passing the A300's left wingtip, the warhead explodes. The shrapnel from the fragmenting cover spreads out and slices through the outer portion of the wing's trailing edge, cutting into fuel tanks, pipes, and electrical connections. Precious fluid sprays through broken hydraulic lines at 3,000 psi, and aviation fuel starts to gush, and then the shockwave from the blast hits the aircraft. The aircraft shakes, and almost immediately Mario, the engineer, spots the pressure in two of the hydraulic systems falling. He announces a double hydraulic system failure as the green, the primary system, and the yellow circuits empty their fluid through the ruptured lines. A double hydraulic system failure is about as serious as it gets, since it leaves the aircraft with only one system left. And should that fail, then none of the primary flight controls will operate. The aircraft would be as controllable as a falling leaf from a tree. 20 seconds later, Captain Gianotti feels the flight controls stiffen as the third and final hydraulic system, the lifeblood of the Airbus, fails. As if that were not enough, aviation fuel from the hold fuel tank has ignited, and now his aircraft is on fire with flames streaming from his shattered left wing. With no hydraulics, his ailerons, rudder, and elevators are floating unpowered. He's unable to move them. His trimmable horizontal stabilator and spoilers are frozen along with his flaps and slats, which are retracted. The aircraft was like a piece of paper in the air, Mario, the flight engineer, explained. We went through a series of steep banks and dives. You couldn't leave your seat. The crew assessed their situation whilst being thrown against their harnesses. They had no flight controls. Part of the left wing was missing and more coming away as the fire took hold, and they are losing fuel at an alarming rate. About the only thing left working were the two engines. In the history of civil aviation, only two aircraft have been in a similar situation: the Sioux City DC-10 and a JAL 747. Both aircraft became uncontrollable after all their hydraulic systems failed. Despite a heroic effort by Captain Al Haynes and his crew, the DC-10 crashed at Sioux City Airport, killing 112. After a terrifying 44 minutes, of uncontrolled flight, the JAL 747 impacted the side of a mountain, killing an appalling 520 passengers and crew. The odds for the Airbus crew were not good, but as Mario Raphael said, the rule book's gone out of the window. Situations like this are unique every time. You can't train for them. You can't write a checklist for them. During the learning process, their airspeed lurches wildly between 180 and 300 knots. The crew have since listened to the cockpit voice recorder tape and say they're quite surprised at how calm they all sound. Mario commented, "All you can do is apply common sense and stay calm. We were the right combination of crew." The only controls left to the pilots was the natural stability of the aircraft and the engines. Being mounted in pods under the wings and below the center of gravity, an increase in thrust would cause the aircraft to pitch up a little. The opposite would occur should the power be reduced. However, this isn't as simple as it sounds. Although the crew could make general changes to the attitude of the aircraft, without fine control, it would naturally oscillate up and down in a phugoid. Trying to turn the aircraft, they needed to use asymmetric power, increasing thrust on one engine and not on the other, which would cause the aircraft to yaw. This yawing action would increase lift on the advancing wing and decrease it on the retreating wing, which would then cause the aircraft to roll, allowing them to crudely turn. Again, this wasn't as easy as it might appear, since they were missing a portion of the left wing, and with a massive fuel leak, the weight in that wing was reducing all the time, making the aircraft want to continually turn to the right. It takes some time to establish how to control their aircraft, and then the crew tried to steer in a big loop back towards Baghdad airfield. All the while, their wing was burning with 50 feet of flame streaming back from the fuel tank, which might explode at any moment. It became obvious that they were unable to get their speed low enough to land and still keep control of the aircraft. So Raphael uses the emergency system to lower the landing gear, which, despite being well above the maximum speed, works perfectly. The aircraft had been trimmed to 215 knots when the stabilator froze, and with the speed back to that regime, the aircraft became easier to control. But despite this, Captain Gianotti has trouble lining up for an approach, and they turn away to reposition. Raphael is working hard to ensure that, despite the leak, fuel is continuously fed to the left engine but not to the fire. Should he make a mistake and actually accidentally cut fuel to the engine, all would be lost. They get a decent distance from the runway and then have a second go from a long straight-in approach. It's looking better, and despite 20 knots of turbulent wind from 290 degrees, giving them an uncomfortable crosswind, they're lined up to land on runway 33 left. Without flaps or slats, they're fast, around 210 knots, and Gianotti knows that at that speed, without spoilers to keep them down, a bounce on touchdown could be fatal. With just the thrust levers, they fly the aircraft down to the flare. They're coping with the phugoid, the asymmetry in weight, the crosswind, and about 400 feet, they meet the rough air that is common around hot airfields, and the wing dips. The aircraft starts to veer off course. Having battled the crippled Airbus for 25 minutes, Gianotti needs one more effort, and he adds power and rights it again, and they touch down as gently as a feather. But with no spoilers, brakes, rudder, or steering, they can't keep on the runway, and they slide off to the side. Engaging full thrust reverse, they plow across the sand and disappear into a huge cloud of dust kicked up by the reversers. In the cockpit, they're bouncing along the rough ground. Several tires fail, and one jolt reaches 7.5 G. Watchers assume the worst, but as the dust settles, they see that the aircraft is intact and has stopped a mere 3,300 feet after landing. An almost unbelievable story of a remarkable aircraft and crew. Captain Eric Gianotti, First Officer Steve Mickelson, and Flight Engineer Mario Raphael were rightly honoured and given awards from around the globe. These included the Hugh Gordon Burge Memorial Award from the Guild of Air Pilots, given to flight crews whose outstanding behaviour and action contributed to the saving of their aircraft, and only awarded for events of significant merit. And the Flight Safety Foundation's Professionalism Award in Flight Safety, which was presented to the crew members for their extraordinary piloting skills in flying their aircraft. And what of their A380? Well, it was promptly repaired and put up for sale. Sadly, there were no takers, and it remains at Baghdad, a sad memorial to a brilliant crew.
Yeah.
I should. Quite hard work, though.
That was great. Really.
Well done. Well done, Nick. That was fantastic.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah. So, Pip, shall we go out and find who's joined us for the 300th then?
Well, just shove this in people's faces.
Yeah, just yeah.
Demand to know why they're here.
Demand, yeah.
Jonathan, why are you here? Come on, explain yourself.
They made me.
They made you. What do you think about this? Oh, rubbish, isn't it? What are we doing here, honestly?
It gives you something to do on a long drive, doesn't it? Sort of see how long you can stay awake.
Which podcast are you listening to for that?
Must be a 3-hour-long show.
Hey, dude.
Hi, Stuart, Farnborough, not too far to travel, and possibly feel somewhat responsible for
yes, you should.
where these get-togethers maybe originated back, was it 6 years ago? Thereabouts?
2016.
2016, that's right.
Yeah. Have you got a different camera angle, please, Matt?
Wow. You're saggy.
We need a roving camera.
All that running.
No.
Sorry, Stu.
So 2016, suggested via some feedback with the airline pilot guys maybe coming over. Didn't think for 1 minute it would happen, but it did, and it's been a few since then, and here we all are again. Great to see everyone.
Hi, I'm Richard from the Isle of Wight, and living that close, it would have been rude not to come, really.
How'd you get across?
On the cat and then on the train.
You came across on the ferry, didn't you? Is that something brown and steaming that comes out of cows?
That's something like that, yeah.
One of our prize winners?
Jan from Berlin. Just flew in for the day, and thanks very much. Came across the show via the APG. Thanks, Jeff, for it's almost 10 years since you started, right?
Yeah.
Early listener to your show, and also early to PTUK. Thanks very much. It's the best community you can have.
Yeah, lovely.
Mr. Ivy.
Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, yourself?
Yeah, pretty good.
You're quite the artist.
Aren't I? Yeah?
Yeah, I was impressed by that.
I can do one for you later if you like.
I think I'm good. I'll pass on that opportunity.
His doodle.
That's an original, priceless work of art, Jeff.
That's
You
an
gotta
original
keep that
Pip.
and
Get it?
frame it.
Yeah, put that on the camera. Wait, let me see.
How's the RG?
It's good. It's good. Schedule this month wasn't that great, but made it here anyway. Looking at upgrading about 3 to 4 months and seeing what the other side of the jet feels like on the left side. They say it's a little bit different, but we'll find that out the hard way, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's move over to the resident secret agent. Can you appear on camera? Do we need to black out his face?
Yeah. Buzz it out.
Yeah. How's it going?
It's going good. Congrats, guys. 300. It's a big milestone. So good luck on the next 300. Maybe around, 2035?
Yeah, I guess so, yes.
Perfect.
Yeah. By the way, Fred, can you explain what was going on when you arrived? You were taking photos of my car in a very suspicious manner.
I was going to surprise everybody because they didn't know I was coming. I was going to take a picture with the car. And
right.
I stepped up to the car and I promptly got busted by Stephen. And so scratch that.
You scratched his car?
I did
Wow.
not scratch it.
Well, we'll have a chat about that later.
Okay, I'm going to move over. Hey, Mila.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. Thanks for having me. Congratulations on the 300. It's nice to meet everyone, see everyone. So glad to be here.
Excellent. How's the ATP treating you?
It's so nice. It's such a lovely airplane.
You like it? That's good.
I love it.
What's the future for you? You gonna move to the left seat perhaps, or move somewhere else?
No, not the left seat, but hopefully continue with the same company, maybe another aircraft. But we'll see, a couple of years.
7-3?
Hopefully. Who knows?
They got some 7.6s as well, don't they?
Yes, they do.
I'll steer clear of the 7.3.
I'll hit him for you, Mila.
Let's move down. Someone checking out, doing the shopping at John Lewis. What are you buying?
That's purely accidental. My name's Nigel. I'm from West Cornwall, but to a certain extent, I've never been to anything like this before. But I'm closed a bit of a circle today, in that many years ago, when there was runway 28, not 27, and the reciprocal runway 10, I worked just down the road here in Speedbird House as a flight medical officer, and in those days, I used to attend meetings, regular little lunchtime meetings, a club called the Penguin Club, and we used to meet in the Magpies or the King William IV on Sipson Lane or the White Horse down at Longford. I think that's enough pubs for the time being. And the Penguin Club was a club of people who worked at the airport, at the airfield here, and there was only 2 terminals in those days, and they were the people who didn't fly, the birds that didn't fly. So we were known as the Penguin Club. Very good. I've closed this. As I say, to a certain extent, I've closed the circle. My first contact really with civil aviation was when I joined BOAC and BEA.
Wonderful, thank you. You drive all the way up from West Cornwall today?
There's another story there. I left my passport on my bed at home when we tried to board the aircraft in Newquay. Alan got on the flight because we came up together. What hadn't realised was that he'd left his iPad at the airfield. So because I had been delayed waiting for my wife to bring my passport, I was able to collect Alan's iPad and bring it up. Had I not left my passport at home, he'd have lost his iPad, maybe forever.
Why do you need a passport to fly from Newquay to London?
I'm afraid that's what
Them's the rules, huh? Okay. Hey!
Yeah, hi. Well, I sort of got onto the Plane Talkie UK also through APG. Stumbled across APG about 18 months ago,
start charging them.
and then became a long-term sufferer of the syndrome, of course. And the rest is history, really. And then came across Plane Talking, and really enjoy all the podcasts. And I think you guys do a wonderful job. Dedication and hard work you put in. And just like to thank you all so much for all you do. Do great for the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wonder over the years how many podcasts APG have given birth to.
Yeah.
Kind of the aviation sluts.
Well,
of
no,
podcasts.
I have big hips.
I should also add thank you also for your podcast.
Oh, thank you.
You do a podcast, Pip?
What's?
Shut up.
Hey, it's not about you today, we.
Yes.
Anyway, you've got a marathon to plug at some point, no doubt. So yeah.
Oh, I'll do that later. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Alex Ronson. Congratulations on 300. Congratulations on 400. Oh, sorry, Pip.
How dare you touch my equipment? At least without asking.
Later. Big inspiration for me. Really, both podcasts came into my life when I wasn't so sure whether I was going to get into commercial aviation. It's really inspired me and helped me bring back that ambition to become a commercial pilot. So thank you everybody.
Well done.
Oh, well done.
Not there yet, but
where are you in the journey?
I'm doing the ground theory, the most fun part of.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah.
we all
Most
love
painful
that.
part,
Yeah.
Have you done any of the exams yet?
I've done general nav, meteorology, human performance, and one other one that's now slipped my mind. It's that important.
Did you pass any? Did you pass any?
Yes.
Oh, well done.
It's a good start. Yes, good start.
So
Yeah.
6 down,
Congratulations.
50 or 60 to go.
Yeah, something like that. It's 4 down, 10 to go.
Awesome. Well, good luck.
Hello. Hello there. I'm Stephen. I've come down from Yorkshire.
Yup.
Well, I'm from Lancashire, not Yorkshire, but still Northerners, common Northerners. I've been listening to the podcast maybe just 3 or 4 months. So discovered them recently. They help fill the dreary days at work. So started with PT UK, airline pilot guy, then got onto yours. So
It's all been downhill then.
Yeah. So great to join up with these things, and hopefully there'll be a few more.
Beautiful. Lovely to see you here. Who we got down here? Oh, we know this guy. Come on. You stay there. I'm going to sit over here. Hey.
Hi, Dave W. here. Feel like I'm in a meeting of AvGeeks Anonymous. I'm here because we were promised free beer. Is that right?
There is
It's
free beer at
behind
the
you,
back.
yeah. Please help yourself.
At the back.
And
and just I just enjoy these meetups and getting to know everyone and seeing what they've been up to after the summer. And it's good to see everyone in such fine form. So brilliant. Thanks.
Excellent. Are you with him?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
By the way,
Do you
Dave,
want to do anything?
just before you finish, Dave, what's all this about all your English breakfast? Do you have any other part of your diet, or you only have the full English breakfast wherever you can?
Well, I tell my friends that I drive around the country eating cooked breakfast for a living, and so that started off me sharing the pictures with them, and that became a Twitter thing. So now I'm someone actually, I think it was Tony, came up to me and says, "You're the cooked breakfast guy, aren't you?" I'm Tony. So there we are. That's now my new moniker.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
Hey.
Hello. I know about PT UK mostly through Matt Smith.
Ah, you're Matt Smith's friend.
Yeah, friend from yeah. And then I got into aviation, dipped back out of it, and I've come back into it. So.
Yeah, because I mean, you've been, to be fair, at the same Nangle's been obsessed with aviation, like probably more than I think you drive on most of the people here, and you've had quite a journey actually, haven't you, to try and sort of
so
live the dream. Literally.
Yeah, got my CPL, got an offer with EasyJet, that sort of went tits up. Went away from aviation, now I'm back in aviation.
So what's your plan?
I now work at a private jet company in operations, and I kind of try and work way up through that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Based
Farnborough, so pretty local.
The one that's just got bought out?
Begin with B, Booker Jet.
Oh yeah, I know. Okay.
Might as well just say it. It's not a secret. I don't know why I went with B. But yeah, I work for Booker Jet operations. So I'm just trying to work my way up through that.
Brilliant. Oh, good luck. All right, skip this guy. Hey, Adam.
Hello. Yeah, you can skip me. I was just going to say, the gentleman who used to work at Heathrow for Borac and BEA, we still go to the White Horse in Longford after a shift in the tower.
I would hope the landlord's changed.
Possibly, but yeah. So and still the Magpies as well is a popular haunt. So we still go to the same pubs.
Excellent. The people listening and perhaps watching live on YouTube won't have seen your excellent presentation earlier on, but I really enjoyed that. It was fantastic.
Good.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Hello.
Hi.
So I'm Carl's boss.
Whoa,
Yeah.
Carl, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
What's he like as an employee? I bet he's rubbish, isn't he?
No, he's great. He's great, and I sort of it's weird being here because I hear about it every day. and, and so it's putting the faces to the names, and there's Nick and Captain Al and this, that, and the other. So, but yeah, brilliant show, and I'm proud of him. He's a good guy.
Excellent.
Thanks, Stu.
I feel sick.
I bet he did.
Now, I can say, now this gentleman is the one responsible for our marvellous screen.
Thank you. Hey. Can I take it home?
Well, I'm Ross. I started off with APG and PTUK and yours, Pip, as well. Used to keep me company while I walked to my flying lessons. So I'm based out of Elstree, private pilot, but I actually don't work in aviation. I got into the inner circle more so by working with Nev, or realising last year we both work in a similar industry, not the same company. And yeah, just coming here, it's my first one, and it's really helped just bring me more into the community. Realised today as well, this chap next to me, work in the same industry, lives a mile down the road from me, and very similar experiences in our side of the industry as well.
Excellent. Let me ask you, at Elstree, is that one controller still there? You know the one I'm talking about, don't you?
No.
That's what they say about you, Adam.
No, he left or was retired in whatever way about 18 months ago. Just as I started my training 2 years ago, he was still there, and even I said to the CFI, is this guy always a bit of a knob? And he said, yeah. Wow. But no, now he's left, and there's about 3 of them, and it's all really lovely, and everyone's really accommodating. The only issue there is all the neighbours, quite a lot of strict noise abatement, and then noise abatement changes all the time. Especially now we're in night flying season. The neighbours are even more particular about when they do and don't like night flying. So, but it's a fun place to fly out of, nicely situated inside, or just under the London TMA, close to Luton, so you get a good bit of exposure to everything.
Yeah, it's a good little airfield.
Yeah.
Excellent. Moving on. Hello.
Hello, afternoon. I'm Bob from London, and I'm a friend of Nev.
Yeah, not many people admit to that.
Yeah, the only person I run into at Heathrow on a more regular basis. Really.
That's right.
So,
yes,
not a pilot, passenger. Fly quite often in a year, probably anywhere from 15 to 30 times a year, going through the big airports all around the world. Was introduced to PTUK by Nev. Enjoy it as a way to put me to sleep sometimes on the aircraft.
It's not just us, Jeff.
To be fair, Steph, we are officially listed as the only known cure to actual insomnia by the NHS, so it's good. Yeah.
But I enjoy all the conversations and the tapping into it, especially when I'm in foreign climes where the only news is Russia Today or CNN, and you really want a different view on the world. It's PTUK gives me a bit of entertainment.
Wonderful. Hi, Graham.
Afternoon, Pip.
So no planes crashed today?
Not that I'm aware of.
It's been a good day then?
Yeah. That's generally how we work. No one's dead that I know of, so good day.
Excellent. Well, you work at, you're one of Adam's colleagues, if people don't know, working over in the tower.
Yeah. I thought it would be rude not to travel the half mile across and just say congratulations on 300.
Ah. Did you clear any of these folks to land as they came in this morning? Steph's flight?
I didn't,
No,
but I was well
not
aware of
American
Steph
Airlines
coming in and
730.
made sure that I started the aircraft that was on her stand so it could be pushed back long for her to park.
We did pull right onto stand. I do
You did?
appreciate that. That was very nice. Thank you.
I was keeping an eye on
Yes,
it, don't
thank
worry.
So you're the one that delayed Captain Jeff getting on the stand.
I wasn't working yesterday, that was all on
Adam.
Adam.
Occupied. And
No, it was...
Oh, that was Adam, was it? Oh, yeah. That would be right. I was driving circles around the airport, waiting to pull in and pick him up. I was going, 45 minutes? What's the matter with you?
I think he did it just so that he could have some airtime on YouTube. Or whatever that was we were watching.
So, you're amongst friends here. You can talk honestly. What's Adam like to work with?
Adam's
I bet he's
excellent to
an
work
absolute monster.
No, Adam's excellent. He writes some excellent instructions downstairs and then comes upstairs and moves aeroplanes around efficiently.
Fair enough. There you have it.
I think he wants a raise.
Is his annual assessment due?
It's due soon, right? Yeah.
Lovely. Thanks, Graham. Moving across, man with the big camera.
Yeah, it's Chris Griggs. Been interested in aviation for as long as I can remember. Took my first flight on a Delta L1011 when I was about 70 years old. Got to go up before terrorism, so I got to go up to the flight deck and been interested ever since. Started listening to PT UK just after the 200th episode, and slowly got myself immersed in the community. And I just need to say, I think I need to double my commission for the A220 video I sent you, since it's been out on the highlights episode.
It's because Carlos keeps forgetting that we've actually had one sent in. That's why.
Brilliant, thank you. Hi.
Hi, I'm James. I'm fairly new to PT UK. I've been working in aviation about 10 years in ATC. I'm a controller at Middle Wallop. I don't know if anyone's heard of it.
Ooh, military controller.
Civvy. Contract to the military.
All right, well, that's not as good then.
Well, I've heard of Middle
We can take all those oohs back.
Is that the Army Air Corps?
It is the Army Air Corps.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, just full of
Apache.
Pongos flying choppers. Really bad news.
Yeah.
What's Middle Wallop like to work at? I bet it's fairly quiet.
It is at the moment, yeah. So they're sort of running down the Apaches for a new model that have been brought out. So they're getting shipped back to America, and then they'll come back from America, and it'll start ramping back up again in about the next sort of 18 months.
Are these the Apaches that can't fly in cloud? Wasn't that the issue?
Tried to kill a few of us. Like, look how close.
We'll leave them there.
I mean, you more than me, but still. Great view now. Great view. Unobstructed.
Did we pay the security deposit for this room? We'll do a plain tale on that later.
Well done, Carlos.
Thank you.
Sorry,
before you were so rudely interrupted.
Apache can fly in cloud.
It can now fly in cloud.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, all you
Well, it could fly
terrorists
in
beware.
cloud before, but only for a little while.
Brilliant.
Yep.
You plan to stay at Middle Wallop, or you got ambitions to move on?
So I've just done a radar rating, which I'm in the process of validating. So maybe a couple more years.
Ooh, well.
And then move on.
There's your man to talk to down there.
Or somewhere? Where would you want to go?
Looking at commercial. So not sure just yet, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hear they've got some nice job of Macrahanish.
Yeah, I have no idea, Jeff. I'm totally lost on that one.
Oh, it's some little place in northern Scotland.
Ah, that would be why.
Where nobody
Yeah,
lives.
no idea.
Except the people in Macrahanish.
Great. Well, good luck to you. Let's move on. Tanya.
Yes, hello. Hi, I'm Tanya from New York City, and I flew in yesterday on a 747 for the first time on British Airways. Yes, very exciting. And I'm so thrilled to be here to celebrate the PTUK 300th show. Congratulations. You're all wonderful people, and it's so great to be here meeting a lot of wonderful new people and seeing a lot of old friends as well.
Lovely. How was BA?
It was great, yeah. The seat was not comfortable, though.
Were you not in business?
That's Boeing for you.
No, I was in the back, but it was good. Yeah.
Brilliant. I have something for you later on, so don't go
before. After dark.
Family show, ladies and gentlemen. Family show.
I got something
As
for you.
promised, when I put out the call, I'm going to plug my marathon thing now, Matt. When I put out the call for cash, I said there's a special prize for the first person to put up some cash, and you were the first person, so you get a special prize.
Excellent.
You can have it later.
Well, we're all very scared as to what that might be.
Oh yeah, brace yourself.
Yes.
Why,
Hello.
You right, Geordie man?
Hello, Pip. I'm Tony from North Yorkshire, and I'd just like to thank all the PT UK crew for all the hard work they do. I started listening about episode 50, and it's really gone from strength to strength over the years. And again, people like Captain Jeff, who have created a marvellous community and put on events like this. I'd also like to thank Adam for his presentation earlier, and Captain Nick for his brilliant Plain Tales, the first ever live one, I believe. So that was fun. And I get to meet people like you and fellow pilots and enthusiasts.
Excellent. Now tell me honestly, did you prefer PT UK back in the old days of Simon?
Well,
he was great.
I was trying to
Where
think.
is Simon? Bring back Simon. Bring back Simon.
I was trying to think when I first started listening to PT UK. I think it might have been about episode 50, so I don't recall those very early episodes.
Matt, when did you come on board? I forget. It was a bit later than that, wasn't it?
Episode 60, wasn't it? Something like that, 61?
No, it's before then, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll look it up one day. I don't know.
You've been there that long.
Yeah.
And when did Nev come on board full time?
About 3 years ago, I guess. 2.5, 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, yeah.
Excellent.
You were correspondent for a long time, weren't you?
Yes. Yes. And I don't know what I got myself into, but it's very enjoyable working with these guys. Although I have to say, it's a bit like being a counsellor for a couple that are about to be divorced all the time. The arguments and the sarcasm.
How did you end up sitting between them again?
But actually, they're a fabulous bunch of people, and they work so hard to put the show on every week, plus all the other bits and pieces that we do as well. So I've got to say, guys, thanks ever so much for welcoming me into your show, and thank you for all you do as well. So that's very nice. Thank you.
No, I was saying that as the token American on the show, we have a private chat between the four of us, and every day I learn about 3 new British sayings or Britishisms, and most of the time I have no idea what they're talking about, so I either have to look it up on Google or just ask them, be like, I can't tell, are we making fun of somebody, or are we making fun of ourselves, or oh, it's just food, never mind.
Lovely jubbly. Thanks, Armando. Yes, sir.
Hi, yeah, I'm Steve. So I've come from Stavanger in Norway. I live in Stavanger in Norway. I recently got into the podcast, Paul's podcast actually, Layovers. I was doing a lot of business travel at the time, and it struck a chord, and I went on to APG and PTUK and your own, which I enjoy a lot. So I was over for Duxford in the summer, and I enjoyed it. So it gives me an excuse to come over for a weekend to the old country. And here I am.
Brilliant. Thank you. There's no spare chairs over there. I'm just going to lean over. Hey, guys.
Oh, yeah. My name's Colin from Norwich. I'm here to support my son. Just driven down yesterday. Well, today, this morning we drove down. He's been suffering from flu, so I had to drive him down here. So here to support him. Soon to be a very poor dad, because he's a aspiring pilot. So.
Brilliant. Good for you. Have you got the strength to talk?
Have you already mortgaged your house?
Not yet. Soon to.
Fingers crossed.
Yep.
Run away.
Sam.
Sam, and you're starting down the path, or soon to start down the path of commercial aviation?
Well, at the moment I'm just looking around the different schools and things, but hopefully by the end of the year I'll start an integrated course somewhere.
Excellent. Well, there aren't so many options, either Oxford or... What are the options these days?
There's 2 in Oxford, Gloucester, Southampton, and...
There's always Florida. It's way sunnier down here.
Yeah. I haven't really looked at the American ones, but I might have a look at them as well.
And cheaper.
I think unless things have changed, a lot of the UK schools do part of the flying training in the States anyway, don't they?
Yeah, the actual flying is often done abroad, but the ground school is based in the UK.
Sam, I'm sort of suddenly thinking probably the colour of your dad's hair is literally changing as this conversation.
Grey by the second.
So suddenly he's off to America.
So, what's the dream in 10 years, 15 years time from now? Where do you want to be? Which airline? What aircraft?
Probably BA Dreamliners.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck to you. I'm sure you're going to do well.
Hello. Afternoon, sir.
Ruben Wells, private pilot for about 25 years. I would have come in or tried to fly into Heathrow this morning, but Adam said I wasn't allowed to bring my Piper in.
What?
So instead,
You can fly it into Charlotte if you ever are in the States.
well, I'm actually just on my way home from Charlotte via New York, so I did
okay.
the red eye as well last night.
Oh.
So I'd stop here on the way.
Were you on the same flight?
No.
No, you went through New York?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And got stuck at JFK when they couldn't remove the jet bridge for an hour and a half.
Oh, no.
They were looking for a forklift truck at one point to move it.
That's JFK for you.
Sounds unfortunate.
And that's the least of your problems.
Where'd you do your private flying from?
Biggin Hill, Thurrock, flown quite a few places in Europe, in the US, been into Morocco.
Own your own aeroplane or you rent or?
Share.
You share, okay. Excellent. Did you say Piper?
Yep. Low wing.
Oh, the PA-28, the regular?
Arrow, yeah.
Oh, an Arrow. Flashy.
You like owl?
Which one?
Not
which owl, which Arrow?
3.
There's only one owl. The Arrow 3. Nice aeroplane. Excellent.
We have an update actually, because somebody in Dubai is watching the show. Apparently, Matt started on episode 36 as a guest, and then I was regular from episode 41 apparently. So there you are. Thank you, Owen.
PT UK keeps you regular. You heard it from Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better than Allbrand. It really is.
Hello.
Hello, I'm a bit confused.
You're confused?
Yeah, concierge told me that the interview for the kitchen staff was here. So, I don't know what this is all about, really. I don't like planes, I like trains.
Well, you got the job, so congratulations.
No, seriously, I'm from Rochester. That's in UK, not America. And home of the an aircraft that your father used to fly, apparently.
Oh, really? What was that? The VC?
Is it Sutherland?
Oh, the Sunderland.
Yeah,
yes.
Sunderland, even.
Well,
yeah, it was produced at Rochester on River Medway.
Well, I never. So Shorts had a factory there, did they?
Yeah. Schultz originally flew out of Isle of Sheppey.
Well, I learned something new
That's
every
where they
day.
first started doing all their testing.
Oh, brilliant. Well, say hello to the place when you get back there for me.
But at the moment, I'm looking to start the commercial exams next year, or start the course at Bristol Ground School. APG have given me the inspiration to go for my dream.
Brilliant, good for you.
And from APG, I've started listening to PT UK, and when I get back home, I'll start listening to your podcast.
Lovely.
Hey, Pip.
Moving on.
Everyone's got to start somewhere, Pip. It's okay.
What a compliment that was.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Phil. Carl's, well, as you can probably tell, his father. Probably responsible for getting him started in this because...
well, yeah, you wouldn't be here if you weren't being around.
And for getting him interested in planes, aviation and whatnot, because he'd probably never tell you this, but he used to spend a lot of time off school when he should have been there.
He was a naughty boy.
Yeah. So...
Well, I guess this is your big opportunity to embarrass him and get him back for all those years of hell he's probably put you through, so crack on.
I wouldn't want to put you through all No, actually he's been a bloody good boy, really. Quite proud of him. When he started this off, I thought, he explained to me what he was doing, and I said, why, who's interested in that sort of thing, you know? And
many of us still ask that question as each day passes.
Yeah, and, you know, I've actually had to eat my words because I went to the 200th, which was absolutely great, and I've been to a few other ones or meetups since then. And you know, all I can say is I'm really proud of what he started, or the two of them originally started, and just how it's gone. It's pretty brilliant.
Thanks, Dan.
Wonderful.
You need to bust out a few tissues over here, I think. Cutting onions up here, it's fine. Pay no attention.
So from father to boss.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Hi.
Hi, Pip. I'm Carl's other boss.
I'm Gemma, for anyone that doesn't know me.
No, we all know who Gemma is.
I know.
We nearly made her bring shopping with her and unpack it like in front of
well done, guys, for everything. I jest. There's so many things I could say about the podcast and how that's changed my life.
Please do.
Yeah, well done for everything you guys have done. It is truly amazing, actually. You know what you guys do. The show's success, I guess, has brought me two things. One, some amazing new friends, and to be part of an amazing community. And two, the fact I do get to put my shopping away in peace now. Happy about.
Yeah. That's the only reason Gemma is so nice to me, because we took it out of the kitchen and put it in a studio at my house instead.
I can still remember the very day that I said to Gemma, I said that we're moving the studio out of the kitchen. It's going to be somewhere else from now on. It was like.
It was just like, I can cook my jacket potatoes.
So
in
happy.
peace.
Gemma, I feel like you had some fans of your own though. Like they would look forward to be like, oh, like Gemma's home with the shopping when they're in the kitchen studio.
And I think it used to be, what is Gemma eating for dinner tonight?
Exactly.
And I think I could have had my own spin-off, quite possibly. But,
yes.
But no, well done. I do jest. I do recall a moment. Do you remember, Carl? One of perhaps my favourite moments is when we were on holiday in Malta, and you were that dedicated to the show. We'd gone on holiday. We'd hired a villa with friends. And Carl was that dedicated to the show that he said, yeah, I'm going to still do the podcast. So myself and my friend and her other half said, right. So he went up on an upper level
to get out of the way
on a balcony. So we thought it'd be really funny to get, you know what you kind of clean the pool with, the big net with long sticks. So we fashioned from some cardboard a Hello Mum sign. And as he was broadcasting, I don't know what episode this is, but maybe Owen will probably know.
Yeah, leave it with Owen. He'll look it up now.
So as Carl was podcasting gladly away behind us, we just raised the sign and kind of waved it, and he was none the wiser. I think it might have been Pip that actually said, Carlos, I think you have a sign behind you. So I like to keep him, on a level ground. But no, well done, everybody.
Lovely. I think Gemma deserves a round of applause for putting up with all of this nonsense. Barbara, how you doing?
Hello, I'm Barbara from Nottingham.
Nottingham.
Nottingham. A up my duck, that's hello in Nottingham. Congratulations, PT UK 300 anniversary. And I first started watching Captain Jeff's APG, and eventually it led me to Plain Talking UK. So, and Pip, your podcast and Airplane Geeks, and I've met some fantastic people in the last few years. So and it's so wonderful to see people from America. So there's Captain Jeff, Tanya, Fred. I could go on and on. There's so many. So thanks for coming over. It's lovely to see you. I got here a bit late. I was a bit annoyed with myself because I missed half of Adam's fantastic talk this morning. I heard half an hour of it. I just missed the exit. Don't.
I'm sure you won't mind me mentioning that Barbara is the last person in the entire known universe who still uses a paper roadmap. She has no concept of GPS or Apple Maps. She's got a bloody atlas.
Yeah, it's true actually. I tend to shy away from modern technology, so maybe that's why I missed the exit. So I was lost for about 20 minutes. So sorry, Adam. I would love to have heard all of it. But I've just in the last year, through all this kind of aviation podcast family, I've been to Duxford. We had a fantastic meetup at Duxford in Cambridgeshire. That was, I think, in May. And then I went to Oshkosh, the big APG meetup there, and it was fantastic. And thank you, Pip, for looking out for me, and Dave Abbey. Both of you were fantastic. And then, obviously now, so the 300th. And so it's really, really fantastic. And I have to say, I was really stressed when I pulled up here in the car park because I was late. And I just got out the car, and the first thing I smelt was the aviation fuel, and the noise of the jets going down the runway, and it just, I tell you, all my stress faded away. And I just thought, oh yeah, I'm back home. I love it.
Brilliant. Glad you made it. Almost there. Saving the best for last.
Hi, I'm Lee, and from the home of plane talking, we're from Bungay.
Bungay!
That's London Bungay.
That's London Bungay, yeah. Long-time friend and former work colleague of Mr. Smith. We got into the show, obviously, through Matt's involvement in the show.
It's great, as I say, quite often like some of the backdrops and stuff are like pictures that Lee's taken like on recent holidays and stuff, so yeah.
And the paint
everybody
work,
can do that, by the way.
And the paint work and the building of the studio
and paint work, yes, they may have done
maintenance in there.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. There we are.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, well done.
Can I go now?
Yes, that's fine. Yeah. We'll tidy it up in post. It's fine. Anyway, we need to wrap up.
Well, I suppose we better do, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, we're now approaching nearly 3 hours.
Oh wow!
Really?
You see how easy that is to do. It just the time just melts away.
It's almost a whole show.
Almost.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's the longest show we've ever done.
We're just trying to compete, guys. What can I say?
No,
Jeff, they're trying to take over our game here. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we're going to say a big thanks then to everyone who is watching the show live on YouTube, because there is quite a full chat room watching the show across the globe at the moment.
Who's there?
Do you want me to run through the list of names?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's another hour's show.
A
lot of the community.
Yeah,
are watching.
we're going to start wrapping up, but of course he's been sitting there patiently for so long. Bless him, poor Armando. We better have some words from him, I think.
Oh, I couldn't follow up everything that everybody said there in the audience. Like everybody else, congratulations, guys, on your 300. It's awesome to see all the familiar faces in the audience as well as some new faces. So it's always great to put names and faces together in this weird virtual world that we live in. But congratulations, guys, again, and here's to a lot more episodes.
There we are. Right, it's time then. You can wrap up for a change.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. What you guys can't see when we do the live show in the studio is normally when I do the lead out to the show, Matt is going like this at me really furiously. So, what can we talk about now? Anything else, Matt?
Oh, come on.
Oh, okay.
I want a drink.
So, a big thanks then to everyone who's joined us in the studio audience. Give yourselves a big round of applause. So from me, Carlos here, Matt, Nev, Armando, and all the team from APG, Plane Safety Podcast, and the Layovers Podcast. Paul, thanks for coming. It's the 300 show, and so thanks everyone for coming. Good night. Take care. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye.